Hey guys, welcome to Fanfic Fanatics. So in today's video we are gonna see, what if Deku saved Momo and fell in love with her, part 1. Before starting, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe if you are interested in MHA fanfictions. This story is Segunda Oportunidad by KachorroKosaka. This is a translated story, so bear with the grammatical errors. Now without wasting any more time, let's dive in. Rain, lightning, and uncontrolled crying coming from a poor, soaked girl clinging to some huge metal bars. The reason became a huge disappointment to her parents. Please, I know I failed you, but I need a chance to redeem myself. The rain fell heavily on a young woman with black hair who was clinging to the bars that were outside the grounds of her house. Mother, father, I am your daughter, the girl cried desperately. We don't have a daughter, our daughter would never have embarrassed us like that, said a very elegant black-haired man with a butler at his side who was holding an umbrella to prevent his master from getting wet. The Yaoyorozu never fail, we never make mistakes, we are perfect, and you have stained the family history, we cannot allow that stain to spread. From this moment on, you are no longer a Yaoyorozu, mentioned a beautiful woman with the most fine and beautiful features that could be witnessed. Next to her was a maid getting wet in the rain while holding an umbrella that covered the mistress. Please, Mom. Dad. She fell to her knees. I am your daughter, I have never made a mistake, I deserve a second chance, the young woman said with her head bowed while her tears were lost in the rain that wet her without pitying her. Flashback. Pav perfection, prestige, honor, status. Words that have guided me throughout my life. I was educated under the strictest standards and curriculum. Literature, science, history, math. All of that is too simple for me, but when it comes to activities requiring more effort, like sports, I'm a complete failure. My parents never believed it was something essential given that my quirk was simply splendid according to their words. Another point to clarify is that the family name would pave the way for me throughout my life. However, that day came. It was a confrontation at the UA Sports Festival. Thousands of spectators both in the stands and on TV watched the prospective heroes in close-quarters confrontations, where they could show off their kosei to catch the attention of a professional hero. I lost. I wasn't prepared for Tokiyami's attacks, it was something completely different from what I was used to. I couldn't get close, there were many eyes looking at me and dark shadow wouldn't give me a break. My shield wouldn't withstand so much punishment and my mind was blank. I couldn't think, and yet after one false step, I was completely defeated in front of thousands of spectators. I felt useless. What good was so much knowledge on a battlefield? My self-confidence was completely gone. I could do nothing but flee from my own shame. I reached an area where no one could see me, my back against the wall, and I slowly slid down until I ended up sitting on the floor. Tears of frustration streamed down my cheeks, and all I could manage was to sob, hugging my legs and burying my face between them. Then I started to hear footsteps approaching me. It was time for the awkward questions and teasing. However, it was something I didn't expect at all. Can I sit down? I heard a male voice. Of all the voices I've heard, I never expected him, of all my classmates, to appear before me at this most awkward moment in my life. Midoriya, I whispered as I saw a boy with green hair, emerald eyes, and freckles on his cheeks that seemed to show pure innocence. I just nodded and he settled in next to me. I didn't know what to say or what he could say to me. What a fight, even though you lost. I feel like you did pretty well. Midoriya began looking up, focusing his eyes on the ceiling. I could see it out of the corner of my eye while I controlled my crying. I couldn't allow myself to be seen like that. I know we're not friends and we barely speak. The last time I think was when I was elected class president. I remember being very nervous that time. The freckled one mentioned. Why are you here? I asked bluntly, perhaps a bit too abruptly, as I made him jump while he smiled nervously at my direct question. I just wanted to tell you not to feel bad. You may have lost, but it doesn't mean it's the end. Sometimes you learn more from a defeat than from a victory because you're fighting an internal battle. Izuku said, thinking he knew how I felt. What arrogance. I'm not mourning, just frustrated, I complained proudly as I felt a small tear threatening to escape from my eyes. What I mean is that, with defeats you learn, you stop and analyze your mistakes to then improve and avoid that from happening again, explained the green-haired man who smiled in my direction. Yaoyorozu-san, don't let yourself fall into that well of sadness and loneliness, it is very difficult to get out of it the more you sink, believe me, the boy said with melancholy. How can you know? You didn't lose. I did. I lost in front of thousands of people, and it's so humiliating that I couldn't even defend myself, I exclaimed, exalted and annoyed, beginning to shed tears of helplessness. I know, because I was quirkless for over 14 years, Midoriya commented, leaving me in shock. You have to be lying, it's impossible for a quirk to manifest after so much time. I was completely dismayed by what Midoriya was saying. Then I saw how the guy in his pants took out a handkerchief and offered it to me. With some insecurity I took it. You can ask Kachan. He tortured me for years as a quirkless for a large part of my life. The green-haired boy explained to me. A few months ago my quirk finally manifested itself. From the age of 4 until shortly before entering the UA I was the victim of humiliation and mockery. His words seemed like a joke, but the seriousness and melancholy on his face made me realize that he was telling the truth. It sounds so fanciful, like you're telling me a story from a comic, I said, wiping my tears. It was strange, but Midoriya's presence was keeping me very calm. We live in a world where superheroes and villains are an everyday occurrence, he replied with a chuckle, revealing the irony of the situation. I must admit, his laughter was slightly contagious, making my lips curl a little, but I remembered my reality, and then he stood up and bowed before me. Midoriya, I said, confused when I saw him extend his hand before me. A helping hand can help a lot if you let it. You don't have to keep your pain to yourself. If you want to cry, cry, scream. The important thing is to let it out, not keep that pain to yourself. She finished her explanation looking at me, and I didn't know what to think, being sincere. Everything the boy said went against all my family's teachings. I was supposed to be able to do things on my own and without help so I could have impressive stories for society about my accomplishments like my parents. But what if, for once, just for once. I took Midoriya's hand and felt myself being helped to stand up. However, he lifted me up so quickly that I almost slipped. Great, things couldn't have been more embarrassing. But Midoriya reacted and grabbed me by the waist by reflex while my free hand was on his chest. I won't lie, he was somewhat burly. Are you okay? The green-haired boy asked, watching me nod silently. I could feel his heartbeat with my hand on his chest as my eyes stared into his. I'd never looked at them so intently before, they were so beautiful. Yes, I'm fine, for my first time, I answered nervously with a soft pink on my cheeks and a warmth in my chest, while my heart felt very agitated. First time? He asked me, puzzled. You're very close to me and you're holding my. I answered, very embarrassed, until a voice interrupted me. Yao Momo. I heard the voice of my friend Kyoka-chan. When I turned my gaze I could see her approaching with a worried expression that turned to surprise and confusion. Midoriya? What are you doing here? Your fight is in 10 minutes, you should be preparing yourself, she clarified with her arms crossed and then raised an eyebrow and looked at us closely. Why? She pointed out how our hands were joined, how Midoriya's other hand was resting on my waist, and how my free hand was resting on his burly chest. Noticing this, we both looked at each other, noticing the compromising position, and we separated, looking away, while Kyoka crossed her arms with her jacks shaking, a little annoyed while she looked at the green-haired man. What's going on here? Kyoka-chan asked overprotectively, threatening Midoriya with her jacks. Well, it's because I saw Yaoyorozu-san sad, Midoriya mentioned very nervously. It seemed he was back to being the Midoriya Izuku of always. Yes, and he was just giving me some words of encouragement. See, right Midoriya? I asked very nervously. Damn, my heart felt like it would jump out of my chest at any moment. Hi, words of encouragement. I hope they have been useful to you, Yaoyorozu-san. IBU. Well, I'm leaving to fight, with your permission, Midoriya mentioned, completely nervous, beginning to walk away at a hurried robotic pace, feeling Kyoka-chan's cold gaze on his back. What a strange boy, Kyoka commented while I had my hands on my chest. We didn't talk much, but in a certain way the little chat we had calmed me down, knowing that he supported me despite not being very close. Midoriya-kun, I called, making him turn around. Thank you for your words, I will take them into account too. I will be supporting you. A smile appeared on my lips and my expression softened. The green-haired boy turned around feeling very happy about that, but when he was distracted and turned around to continue on his way, he crashed into a wall, making me bring my hands to my mouth with concern. Are you okay? I asked while I saw him rub his nose and raise his thumb to continue on his way. What a weirdo. Is something going on between you two? Since when do you call him Midoriya-kun? Kyoka asked, arms crossed, making me blush. Nah, nothing. I'm just grateful to him for coming and cheering me up. Now let's go, I promised him. I mentioned adopting an honorable demeanor, although my cheeks felt a little warm. Do you like him? Kyoka asked me with a mocking smile. She knew how much I liked making those kinds of jokes. Of course not. I already told you. I'm grateful to him. I complained somewhat indignantly as I continued on my way. Although I could still hear her giggling, it seemed she had found something to annoy me with. At the end of the sports festival I saw how Midoriya-kun ended up becoming the winner and number 1. Although the idiot got hurt a lot with his attacks when facing Todoroki and Bakugo, however I couldn't help but feel good for him. When it was all over I realized my ride wasn't coming and the sky was gray and rain was starting to fall. This really had me worried, but then, he came back. Yaoyorozu-san. The green-haired man called me. I smiled at him when I saw him, although it seemed that he noticed. Here comes the champion. I'm surprised you remember those of us below you. I made a joke wanting to make him feel important. He turned red with embarrassment. I'm not like that. I'm more like this, the boy said, scratching his neck nervously. Calm down. I was just playing. I made fun of him to mask what I felt at that moment. I thought you were going out with Iida-san and Ochako-san, I commented looking at the boy. Iida-kun had a commitment with his family and Uraraka-san went with Ishido-san and Hagakure-san. The boy mentioned, however, I ended up giving him a hug when a thunder gave me the scare of my life. Yaoyorozu-san. He sounded nervous. Hey rich girl, it seems you are very affectionate with Midoriya, Kyoka-chan joked again, arriving behind Midoriya. I hate thunder, this is different. I defended myself with the best argument I could think of while Deku turned red. It's weird to see them not coming for you, Kyoka-chan commented, looking at me as I walked away from Midoriya. I know, I've called them several times and they haven't answered. I guess I'll have to walk. I whispered regretfully because it was really late and I just wanted to take a shower and end this nightmare day. Well, if you want, we can accompany you, Midoriya suggested, looking at me. Oh, I couldn't ask you that. Then I remembered Midoriya's words, took a breath and relaxed a little. Okay, but I don't have an umbrella. What about you? I asked, watching them shake their heads. The day until a few hours ago was sunny and now it was raining a little harder. Looks like you're in trouble, a thick voice said. Then the three of us looked at All Might in a trench coat. All Might, Izuku said excitedly upon seeing his hero. That's right, Shonen. I'm here. I'll save your day, All Might said, leaving in the green-haired boy's hands an umbrella big enough for the three of them. The bad thing was that when he looked up it was pink with hearts. Nice umbrella, Kyoka commented with a raised eyebrow. It was Grandma Might's. See you later, he said, starting a run and disappearing. Yao Momo, can't you create a less embarrassing umbrella? Kyoka asked, watching Momo shake her head. I haven't eaten anything and my lipids are at their minimum capacity, I replied regretfully, besides I was exhausted. We had no choice. Midoriya took the umbrella and then Kyoka-chan sat on his right and I on the left. It was somewhat uncomfortable because some people looked at us, especially Midoriya, whom they recognized as the champion, and congratulated him for his victory and for coming with two pretty girls. We walked through several streets. They were long, but at all times I forgot my problems of having failed. Kyoka-chan's jokes making fun of Izuku a little, about how we were pretty girls and he should pamper us, were quite funny. However, I got home. That's where it all happened. I looked at the gate and sighed, not knowing what was waiting for me. Thank you very much for joining me, guys. I thanked, looking at Kyoka-chan and Midoriya-kun smile. It was when I approached I saw how 4 silhouettes approached. They were Mom, Dad and 2 servants. However, their aura was different from usual. Mom? Dad? I asked strangely while both looked at each other indifferently. You see, dear, a stranger thinks we are her parents, my father said coldly. At that moment Kyoka-chan and Midoriya were following me behind. Yes, I heard her. She must be confused, my mother replied. Many said that I would end up looking like my mother when I grew up, something I took as one of the highest compliments. Mom, Dad, it's raining. This isn't the time for this. Can we talk about it inside? I asked, a little irritated. Ja. They both laughed, surprising me. Their laughter seemed so villainous. Midoriya, I don't like this at all. We have to get her out of here, I heard Kyoka-chan. Enter. Only Yaoyorozu can enter these grounds, and unfortunately for you, you are no longer a Yaoyorozu, Dad sentenced, leaving me in shock. What? I could barely get my words out, and no, it's not true, I'm her daughter, Momo Yaoyorozu. My voice trembled as my eyes filled with tears. Our daughter? We don't raise losers, Dad declared, knocking me to my knees. Hey, what's wrong? How can you say that about your daughter? Kyoka-chan shouted, defending me when a loud thunderclap was heard in the sky. We had a daughter, but she's dead, Mom said, leaving me speechless and on my knees in the doorway while I felt tears running down my cheeks faster than the rain itself, while all my memories of that house flashed through my head. That's 16 more years, we can start over and make a new son, a worthy heir, Dad said with a smile. My scream and a crash of thunder combined as I ran desperately to the gate and banged on it in front of his calm, expressionless face. End of flashback. POV turn on the fence. The man ordered. Momo didn't notice due to her desperation. Izuku reacted by grabbing her by the shoulder and pulling her away from the fence. Unfortunately, he had touched the metal. Ah! The green-haired boy screamed, electrocuting himself and then being thrown against a wall across the street where the electricity ran through Izuku's body, causing involuntary reflexes. Midoriya! Kyoka shouted upon seeing the green-haired boy and then seeing her best friends, parents, walking calmly back to the comfort of their home. Heartless. Heartless. Momo is a human, she can make mistakes, she is not a computer that will never have errors, Izuku exclaimed loud enough to be heard. Not even computers are comparable to us, boy, Mrs. Yaoyorozu responded arrogantly, leaving the field of vision. Those were the last words of the Yaoyorozu, while Izuku growled in annoyance as he began to walk. While raising his hand using his right for a Delaware smash, however, Momo stopped him. She looked broken but her gaze pleaded with him. Don't hurt yourself for me or for them, she begged with tears running down her eyes. Yao Momo, let's get out of here, Kyoka asked, since this would just be a waste of time. Midoriya, are you okay? Kyoka asked, receiving a nod. Let's go to my house, it's close and it seems like the rain won't stop soon, the green-haired man mentioned, taking the umbrella with his hand to take the girls with whom they didn't object. It was best to cover themselves before the weather got worse. The walk was silent, no one wanted to say anything. The green-haired boy watched Momo cry, and Kyoka hugged her tightly, not wanting to leave her alone. By the time they arrived at the Midoriya family's home, Inko was surprised to see that her son was soaked and that he was accompanied by two girls in a similar state, their uniforms wet. What happened? The plump woman asked, looking at her son. Mom, first, prepare the bath for them. Then I'll explain everything to you, the green-haired man commented, looking at the woman. Yes. The woman replied to see how she left the boys alone. I'll get in with her, I doubt she'll have the strength to do it alone, Kyoka said, worried about her friend's condition. I appreciate it, the green-haired man mentioned, watching Inko arrive with a couple of towels. Son, dry yourself. Girls follow me, put your clothes in the laundry basket and I will dry them as soon as possible, commented the green-haired girl looking at the girls who slowly advanced to the bathroom. Then Inko returned to Izuku and he just hugged her. The woman did not care that it was wet. Would you kick me out of the house for letting you down? The green-haired man asked, shedding tears. What? No, I would never do that. You're my son and I love you, the woman said, feeling how Izuku clung to her more. Wait, aren't you telling me it's them? The woman said worriedly. It's a long story, Mom, Izuku said. As time passed, he watched as the woman, sitting at the table with her son, listened to the story, how Momo lost, how he encouraged her, and how her damn parents destroyed her emotionally, all while Kyoka helped a sobbing Momo in the bathroom. But how cruel, how can that be possible? The woman said with tears running down her cheeks. I thought the same thing, Mom. You have taken care of me all my life and even more so when my quirk had not developed. I can never be grateful enough to you for being the most wonderful woman in my life, the boy mentioned looking at the older green-haired woman. And I couldn't have asked for a better son, the woman replied, standing up to hug the boy. The minutes passed and both Momo and Kyoka came out wearing long shirts that Izuku had. Then it was the green-haired boy's turn to go bathe, something that Inko took advantage of by approaching Momo and taking her hands. What those people did to you was very cruel. You don't do that to anyone. I know you're used to a different way of life, but if you want, you can stay here, We have a guest room, the woman said worriedly when Momo couldn't stand it anymore and hugged her crying on Inko's shoulder. Okay. Okay, darling, it wasn't your fault. There are people who aren't born to be parents and there are people who have the ability, but not the opportunity, the woman said, stroking the girl's hair. For his part, Izuku was under the showerhead, now looking at his hand burned by the electricity with great anger. I swear I won't let anything like this happen again. From today on, I'll take care of Momo-san. The green-haired man clenched his fist tightly. 2 weeks have passed since that event. It was announced in the media that the young Momo Yaoyorozu had been expelled from the Yaoyorozu family. Her own parents defamed her, stating that there was no way to correct a daughter as disappointing as her. This made many who knew her turn their backs on her, either out of fear or loyalty to the family. Now we can find ourselves at the UA where the matter of the young brunette was being discussed. The teachers were worried. The girl had entered by recommendation and now everything was getting out of hand with the decision those people had made. What have you heard from the girl? The principal asked thoughtfully. The mouse man was sitting at his desk looking at All Might, Eraserhead, Present Mike, and Midnight, while Cementos, Snipe, Ectoplasm, and Vlad were standing to one side, merely observing. The last thing I heard from Midoriya Shonen is that he gave her asylum in his home, his mother and he are taking care of her, commented the skeletal blonde looking at the director who held his hands together looking very serious. Have you been able to see her? Nezu asked worriedly, watching Toshinori shake his head and let out a sigh. Mrs. Midoriya won't let me in. She says she's not feeling well, she's in a total state of denial. The only person she seems to trust is Midoriya Shonen, commented the blonde with hollow eyes looking at the mouse man. I understand. She's fighting a duel. Difficult times are coming for Miss Momo, the mouse mentioned while watching Aizawa take the papers corresponding to the girl. Miss Momo is one of the best in my class. She stands out in intelligence as well as in support. I do not intend to lose a valuable student like her. All my students are precious to me, even if she does not show it. Director Nezu, despite the fact that she lost her family's recommendation, I recommend the applicant Momo to enter the UA and continue her studies, mentioned the black-haired man now turning his back on everyone. Are you sure about this, Aizawa? Nezu asked curiously, watching the black-haired man nod in complete silence without turning to look at them. I thought you didn't play favorites, Nomori questioned, looking at her tired-eyed companion, who stopped in the doorway. At that moment, Present Mike placed a hand on Midnight's shoulder and asked her to be silent. I never regret my decisions, Aizawa replied dryly. Do you want me to go with you? Asked the blonde with the loud voice, but this time he looked calm. I'll be fine, replied the black-haired man, continuing on his way. Midoriya family home. First stage. Denial. It had been a few difficult days. Juru visited the Midoriya house very often because Momo was very unstable. Even Inko herself had problems controlling her on several occasions. Just like now. We can see the rocker stopping her best friend who was struggling against Mrs. Midoriya. Her jacks were surrounding her wrists to prevent her from hurting Inko. Honey, calm down Momo, I know it's difficult, you won't gain anything by appearing there, said the woman while the girl tried to break free. However, the lack of food made it more difficult for her to defend herself or free herself because by not having the necessary lipids she couldn't create anything that would help her. Please I just have to go see them. I'm sure if I explain things well they'll understand. I know them, they're my parents, they can't do this to me. They love me, Momo said completely disheveled. Her hair was somewhat disheveled, she had large bags under her eyes and she was wearing only a long white shirt that reached her thighs. Momo, calm down, it's not worth it for you to go back, those people, if you can even call them that, are only going to treat you badly, Kyoka said worriedly, wanting to make her friend reason while she held the brunette tighter. Let me go, please let me go, I'm alone. I just want to go home, Momo cried, falling to her knees. Inko shed tears, she couldn't believe that the Yaoyorozu would go to this extent to hurt someone just for not meeting their expectations. Your home, honey, this is your home and it will always be your home whenever you need it, Matriarch Midoriya mentioned worriedly while the brunette cried bitterly over the woman. The door opened and Izuku entered through it, somewhat tired. The internships with Gran Torino were very hard, especially when he had to return home so as not to leave his friend alone. Now the boy was carrying some bags for that afternoon's meal. However, upon hearing his friend's screams, he quickly entered the living room. Mom, Kyoka, let her go, the green-haired man asked, and when the young woman saw him, she ran towards him and hugged him desperately. Izuku, Paige. Please take me home, I want to go back please. I know I can talk to them. I know this is all a misunderstanding. They would never do this to me. The girl begged, crying on the green-haired man's shoulder. Deku hugged her protectively while she kept crying on his shoulder. The poor girl really looked really bad and wrapped her arms around Izuku. Momo, I promise I'll take you, said the boy, making her look up. Her mother and Kyoka disagreed. But first, you have to eat please. I don't want you to get sick, so, let's eat. You will take a bath. Kyoka can help you. The green-haired man spoke to her with a soft and sweet tone of voice while with his thumbs he removed the tears from the brunette's eyes. You will change. You will make yourself very pretty, and once you regain strength and feel better, I will take you to see them, but first you have to gain strength to get their forgiveness. Can you promise me that? Asked the green-haired man, watching as the brunette lowered her gaze and hid in the green-haired man's shoulder. Get her forgiveness? Momo didn't have to get it, she shouldn't even go, but the best thing she could do to calm her down was to tell her what she wanted to hear. I promise, the young woman whispered, lowering her gaze. Okay. While Mom and I make dinner, take a bath and get all pretty, because my vice president has always been a very careful girl with her appearance, said the green-haired boy while the young woman looked away with a small blush. I'll leave it to you, Kyoka, asked the green-haired boy, so that the rocker nodded and took Momo, who hugged herself. Thanks son, it's getting harder and harder to control her, Inko mentioned, watching the boy sigh as they entered the kitchen. It was a small place but enough for at least 4 people, with blue walls and white furniture, where the green-haired man put the purchases on a square table with 4 chairs. I'm not going to let them hurt her again, Mom, not again. Seeing how they insulted her and said those things to her really filled me with rage, but I got even angrier when she begged me not to hurt them, the boy said, clenching his fist when the woman's hands took her son's hands to stop him from putting pressure on them. You did well son. Stopping is not easy, especially when injustice is in front of you. The important thing is, as All Might told you, that you protect the smiles of others, commented the plump woman, managing to calm her son. You know, you were very protective of Momo-chan, more protective than you would be with that friend of yours you told me about. The girl has pretty cheeks, mentioned the woman, wanting to lighten the tension of the place, making the green-haired boy blush. No, it's not true, the boy responded defensively, raising his hands slightly to his chest to calm his mother, understanding what she meant. With those protective and comforting hugs you say it's not true. I can't imagine what the treatment would be like if you were really in love with Momo-chan, Mrs. Midoriya said mockingly, making the green-haired man release steam from his ears. Mother! The boy exclaimed, completely embarrassed, watching the green-haired girl laugh. I won't lie to you, HM. I really waited a long time for this moment, the woman said, trying to suppress her laughter with her hand. After all, a mother always seeks to meet the girl that her son would choose to share his life with. Midoriya house bathroom. You could see the water from the shower running over Momo's body while Kyoka just stood guard waiting for her to finish. Is everything okay? Kyoka asked, receiving a somewhat muffled, yes. Hey, I don't know if you want to, but I talked to my parents and they told me it was okay if you wanted to come live with us, Kyoka commented with her arms crossed. Oh, I don't know, Kyoka-chan. I just want to stop causing trouble. Besides, I know my parents will change their minds, Momo said, trying to convince herself. Momo, Kyoka said, but was interrupted. You'll see, it's just a matter of days, like Izuku-kun says. I have to eat well to regain my strength and get ready so I can go see them. I'm sure they'll change their minds when they see me stronger, the girl said, smiling. However, tears ran down her eyes as she hid with the water from the shower falling on her head. Fine. It'll be as you wish, Kyoka said with a tired sigh, while a black car parked outside the Midoriya residence. By the way, there's something that has caught my attention this week. Is it you and Midoriya? Jiru asked curiously, making Momo almost slip. Are you okay? The rocker asked worriedly. What things are you saying, Kyoka-chan? Izuku-kun is a good friend. I just have a lot of respect and affection for him, and he has also taken care of me a lot, the brunette said very nervously. Yeah, Kyoka replied hesitantly. Don't get any weird ideas. I'm very grateful to him and Mrs. Inko for their patience with me, said the young woman as she turned off the water. See. Could you go out? I want to get dressed, said the young woman as her friend looked at some clothes that Mrs. Inko had given to Momo. These were from when she was younger. At that moment, a knock at the door was heard, so Izuku decided to go answer it so his mother could get on with dinner. However, when he arrived and opened it, he got the shock of his life. Aizawa-sensei, he said, surprised to see the man. Hello Midoriya. Sorry for not letting you know I was on my way. Can I come in? The man asked, looking at the green-haired man, who nodded, letting the pro-hero pass with his hands in his pockets. Izuku. Who is it? Inko asked from the kitchen. He's one of my teachers from school. The green-haired boy answered where Inko appeared, drying her hands on an apron. Do you want something to drink? The younger green-haired boy asked. Water would be nice, Eraserhead replied calmly. Sure, I'll be back, said the green-haired boy, leaving Aizawa with his mother. What can we do for you? Inko asked, looking at the man curiously. I heard that you're giving asylum to a student. I wanted to know how she's feeling and if I can help in any way so the burden isn't too heavy for you, the man said calmly. Momo-chan is not a burden, she has her good and bad days like everyone else, but yes, it has been a bit difficult with the villains who were her parents, said the woman annoyed, while the green-haired man approached with a glass of water. Could I see her? Of course, if it's not a bother for you, I need to inform you a few things about the hero course. Don't worry, nothing negative, it's quite the opposite, the black-haired man hurried. I guess it's okay, said the woman, not very convinced. Aizawa-sensei, here you go, the green-haired man approached him, offering him the drink with ice, which he appreciated. Izuku, take your sensei to the living room, I'll lower the intensity of the fire for the food and then I'll go see Momo-chan, said the woman, withdrawing so that Izuku could guide the man to take a seat. Once Inko took care of the food, leaving everything to simmer, the woman arrived where Kyoka then the door opened revealing Momo with her old outfit which looked too good on her. You look very pretty, dear, I'm sure Izuku will notice, the green-haired girl commented with a smile, making Momo blush. The brunette had her hair loose and slightly wavy, she wore a white shirt and a pink sweater over it that seemed to perfectly outline her young silhouette, she wore a blue skirt that she wore above her knees and white socks. Mew, thank you very much, said the young woman embarrassed. Momo-chan, there is a man out there, Izuku says he is his teacher, a certain Aizawa, the woman mentioned taking Momo's hands, who was surprised as was Kyoka. As Aizawa-sensei here? Jiro asked in surprise as the green-haired girl nodded. Yes, the woman replied, returning all her attention to the dark-haired girl, he says he has something important to tell you regarding the UA. Do you feel ready to deal with him? I can ask him to leave if you want, the woman said, looking at the young dark-haired girl. Minutes later, the three of them appeared in the living room, where Izuku looked somewhat nervous with his sensei at home, but when they both felt Inko's presence, they turned around. Aizawa was surprised to see the girl, she looked so different, while Izuku couldn't help but blush when he saw Momo, something that his teacher didn't overlook. Remember, darling, if you don't feel ready or comfortable, you don't have to answer anything. With those words, Momo nodded silently and sadly sat next to Izuku while Kyoka kept him company. I didn't expect to see you here, Jiro-san, Aizawa commented watching as Jiro sat next to Momo, leaving her in the middle. She's my best friend sensei, I can't abandon her. The young woman was apparently very loyal, which gave the professional peace of mind. Momo, I came to inform you of certain things that have happened at UA. What you are facing brought some inconveniences, we were between taking you out or allowing you to continue your studies, Aizawa said looking at the girl who lowered her gaze. I won't lie to you, the Yaoyorozu did everything to get you out, they didn't want you to continue your studies under their recommendation, her sensei explained seriously. Momo began to shed tears in silence, it couldn't be fair, how was it possible that the beings who gave her life could do this to her? That's why I used my only recommendation for you to continue studying in Class 1A with your classmates and friends, the man explained, making Momo look up in surprise, but without stopping her tears. Are you serious, sensei? Izuku asked in surprise, watching the man nod calmly. I never regret my decisions, the man replied, standing up. I'm not one to speak for everyone, but I'm sure your classmates, friends and teachers would like to see you where you belong, at school, studying and serving as vice president, as you have always done. the man commented, to feel how Momo in the blink of an eye simply hugged him. The girl's action really took him by surprise. He had a hard time reacting, but in the end he gently returned the hug. "Thank you," whispered the young woman clinging to her sensei. The man slowly pulled away after a few seconds so she could look into his eyes. "We'll wait for you until you feel ready to enter. Don't worry, in the meantime Midoriya can bring you your homework to this place. That's all from me." The man looked at Mrs. Midoriya and nodded. "Excuse me, I'm sorry for any inconvenience I may have caused," the man said calmly before returning his gaze to his students. "Problem boy, Jiro, don't leave her alone." Aizawa asked to be accompanied by Mrs. Midoriya to the exit. "Isn't it great, Momo-chan? You can return to the academy and continue studying," Kyoka said, hugging Momo, who smiled, although having hugged Aizawa left her with a strange feeling. Then Inko returned and looked at the brunette. "Kyoka-chan, Izuku-kun," Inko-san said, the young woman looking at them. "Thank you very much for being patient with me," commented the young woman, smiling with a couple of tears on her face. Izuku smiled, while Kyoka and Inko wasted no time and hugged her. "Ah, there's nothing to be thankful for, darling. Don't cry anymore or I'll cry too," Inko said with a comical expression, her eyes watery from the tears she held back, and such beautiful words. Meanwhile outside he watched as Aizawa walked to his car, and that's when he found present Mike smiling and leaning against his car, raising his hand in greeting. "Do you want to get a drink and tell me how it went?" the blonde asked, receiving a silent nod from the man. They watched as the two of them went upstairs and headed to a nearby bar. A celebration took place at the Midoriya home. Momo's condition improved a little that afternoon. She even ate properly, making Inko and Kyoka very happy. However, what begins must end, and now Jiro was at the entrance of the home saying goodbye and hoping to see them both the next day. Izuku accompanied Kyoka to the station even though she said it wasn't necessary, but the green-haired boy argued that he wouldn't allow her to leave alone. Once Izuku made sure that Kyoka took the subway, the green-haired boy returned home where he found his mother washing the dirty dishes. Izuku walked down the hallway, being seen by Momo, who did not hesitate to stand up and follow him to his room. She stood under the frame and could see him take his uniform out of a closet to leave it handy and then proceed to check his backpack, hoping to have everything ready for the next day. At that moment, he saw Momo enter the green-haired boy's room at a slow pace, and, since she was facing away, she ended up pressing against the young Midoriya's back. "You came back hurt," said the worried young woman, tilting her head and resting her forehead against Izuku's shoulder, hugging him from behind. "They are minor injuries, Momo," the green-haired man replied, downplaying it. Now that he looked closely at the green-haired man, he had a bandage around his forehead and neck, a gauze taped with medical tape on his right cheek, and his right arm was bandaged. "I may be depressed, but I'm not stupid. I don't like to see you hurt or get hurt like they did," Momo said, remembering how her parents electrified the fence of her old home and electrocuted her friend who saved her from receiving that shock. "Training with Gran Torino is hard, but don't worry, it's finally over. I won't be hurt anymore," said the boy, turning her around to take her by the shoulders while she looked at him with a smile, and then Momo hugged him. The closeness with the green-haired boy, how he supported and cared for her, made her feel very good. Izuku at a point like this would be completely nervous and saying so much nonsense halfway in the form of unintelligible babble. However, since it was a friend in trouble, he had managed to remain calm in order to support her properly. "Thank you, Izuku, you are the best friend I've ever had," said the young woman, bending down a little and giving the boy a kiss on the cheek. This time the green-haired boy blushed and she just looked away in embarrassment. "No, you're welcome. You're my friend and I can't turn my back on you. I'll always protect you," said the boy, looking away from her. "Ma, can we go to school together tomorrow?" the girl asked, now looking down. "I guess it's something that has to be done," the boy said with a smile. "I mean, we're living together. I don't plan on leaving you behind while I go alone," the green-haired boy said, returning his gaze to the girl. "It's true, that, how careless of me," the girl said while her lock of hair was passed behind her ear by Izuku. "You look pretty," the boy complimented the brunette, who smiled with a slight blush. Thank you," the ex-Yaoyorozu responded a little shyly. "Your mom's clothes are quite comfortable," the girl said happily while the green-haired boy smiled. Momo's appearance looked fresher with that outfit. Without anything else to say and smiling at each other, Momo retired to her room, but not before wishing goodnight to the green-haired boy, who responded by returning the phrase to the brunette. The brunette entered the bedroom and sat on the bed in the room, sighing regretfully. I know that when they see me again, they'll say it was all a big mistake. For now, I just have to try hard to make Inko-san and Izuku-kun proud, since they've helped me so much, Momo said with a small smile, and then turned to the closet and saw Inko's old clothes and the uniform she wore on the day of the great tragedy. You'd better rest, tomorrow will be a difficult day, she said as she lay down with no intention of undressing and just settled into bed and then closed her eyes and surrendered to Morpheus' arms. A new day had arrived in the city. Right now we can see Izuku finishing getting ready to continue his hero course. The boy was somewhat anxious knowing that Momo would return to school after 2 long weeks. Good, remember Izuku, Momo must continue as normal as possible, and Kyoko will be around in case of anything, the boy said to himself as he finished arranging the red tie around his neck. However, there was no solution to it. I should have taken it off when I put the clothes in the wash. The boy sighed in regret. He opened the door and then looked at Momo's roll call in front of him, and just as he remembered her, Momo, the boy said, looking at her ready for school. Good morning Izuku-kun. Momo greeted with a smile. It seemed as if she had returned to normal. She was wearing her school uniform and her hair was perfectly combed with her high ponytail. You look better. That makes me happy, the boy commented with a smile, looking at Momo, who responded with a kind smile and then looked at Izuku's tie. Let me help you, said the brunette, looking at the green-haired man, who was surprised to feel Momo's hands very close while she fixed his tie. It's not necessary, the green-haired man replied, embarrassed, looking away. It's no problem, my mother taught me this many times, she said. It was in case my future partner didn't know how to tie his tie, the girl mentioned with a smile. I'm serious, I just started using it recently, but I've always used it, said the green-haired boy when Inko appeared. Son, I got you a couple of hook ties, Inko said, approaching with the ties when she saw the black-haired girl slide the tie ready. This made her happy. And with this you no longer have to use hook ties, Momo commented, letting out a giggle, embarrassing her friend. You look better, daughter, it's good, Inko mentioned, looking at the black-haired girl. Thank you very much. Perhaps part of the stress was my future. I know that my parents will recover their sanity. In the meantime I will eat. I will become strong and then I will see them again, Momo said, smiling. The older green-haired girl didn't say anything. She looked very good. It was best to leave her like that. Well then go have breakfast so you don't get late. I also left your lunch ready for school, the woman commented, making the boys nod. With that they both went to have breakfast and then went straight to the UA. Everything seemed normal that day, as if nothing could go wrong. Momo looked fine, somewhat lively, as if she were her usual girl, although when she received the looks of others she was forced to take Izuku's right arm, surprising him. It seemed that she was looking for protection. Are you okay? The green-haired man asked, watching his friend look down, blushing. People are looking at me, the brunette whispered worriedly. Even murmurs could be heard. Don't worry, I'm with you, the green-haired man mentioned, wanting to reassure him. Meanwhile, near the two boys, another couple could be seen, sitting at a table while the boy was carrying 2 glasses of coffee. No news, at this rate I'm going to lose my job, said a red-haired woman with green eyes wearing office clothes, consisting of a long-sleeved white shirt, a black skirt, pantyhose and high heels, who took her glass of coffee and took a good gulp. Hey, said the cameraman who accompanied him. He was a young man with black hair and canine features. Don't bother Kosaka, at this rate we'll end up on the streets and I'm willing to sell every one of your belongings to continue living well, complained the red-headed reporter, letting out a sigh of regret, leaving her coffee half finished. I don't understand why my things, when you have more than 15 pairs of shoes, but that's not the point, babe, now stop crying and look in that direction, the cameraman complained seriously when the redhead heavily put down her coffee cup to turn around and look in the direction her partner was pointing. The first place of the UA and the ex-Yaoyorozu, she said, surprised when she turned to see the black-haired man. We've got an exclusive, let's go before anyone else notices, the canine cameraman commented as he smacked him on the head. What was that for? The boy complained. You're a slow idiotic. Let's go. I want to eat good dinner tonight, the redhead exclaimed, starting to run with the cameraman behind her. Back with Izuku and Momo, they seemed to have calmed down a bit when. Hey, champion! An unknown voice shouted, making Izuku turn around while he was surprised to see a reporter and a cameraman. Yes, you, broccoli head. Stay there, you and the ex-rich girl, said the woman who was running while her attributes shook in the race. Oh no! Izuku exclaimed as he turned around and saw several red eyes and some dark silhouettes with microphones in their hands. The UA champion. It can't be. Is it really him? Wait, isn't that the girl from the news? Stop right there, stop. The redhead shouted, her eyes now rolling, showing anger at seeing so many rats lurking around their prey. Get out of here, you fucking scavengers. The woman shouted, refusing to give up her exclusive. Momo, Izuku said, turning to look at her. Apparently she had been in shock. Forgive me for doing this without your permission, said the boy, taking her in a bridal manner. Full cowl. 15%, exclaimed the green-haired boy, releasing green energy beams from his legs. Izuku-kun, Momo said when she reacted to seeing herself very close to the boy's chest and then seeing how he took a big leap to get away as fast as possible. Don't let them pass. That news is mine. Boss, there are too many of them, they look like zombies, the redhead's cameraman complained when they saw the green-haired man disappear while running and jumping away from the media. The redhead had a twitch in her right eye when she saw this and then looked at the other reporters. Damn tomato head, you're always a pest. This is going to end badly, the cameraman whispered, followed by a scream of anger and then screams of pain. For their part, our couple was moving quickly through the streets thanks to the green-haired man's skills, the trip being too bumpy and attracting a lot of attention. However, they managed to get to the school where the green-haired man dropped Momo off and he was just breathing heavily. At least we lost them, Izuku said, feeling safe inside the UA facilities. Are you okay? The green-haired man asked while Momo had her eyes downcast and just nodded. He's always saving me, Momo whispered, who at that moment was in complete shock by the other's words. Why? What do you gain by helping me? I have no money, I have no house, I have nothing. What do you gain by helping me, Izuku Midoriya? She shouted angrily, surprising the green-haired boy with the change of mood. Second stage, anger. Momo, calm down, you're my friend, I promised I would take care of you, Izuku mentioned, wanting to calm her down a little. Why? Why do you want to take care of me? I don't own anything, damn it, I'm just a pretty girl with excessive curves. Is that what you want? Huh, are you like Mineta? Do you want my body like everyone else? Momo shouted, clenching her fists, making the boy back away. No, of course not, I just want to help you, I can't allow a friend. At that moment the green-haired man was interrupted. Friend? Since when are we friends? As far as I remember, we never interacted before the sports festival, the girl shouted, starting to attract attention. Momo, I know you're angry, said the green-haired boy, being interrupted once again when his face turned around with a red cheek, leaving him in shock. It's Yaoyorozu for you, she said, annoyed while the green-haired boy looked at her, but then, she noticed it, her anger faded and she realized, Izuku, the brunette mentioned with her trembling and broken voice, noticing the green-haired boy's swollen cheek, and then hugged him. I'm sorry, I'm really sorry, forgive me, I didn't mean to do it, I don't know what happened to me, the girl said, starting to cry. The green-haired boy simply hugged her. It's okay, don't worry, it's normal that you're frustrated, if I have to receive your anger I will, but you must release all that anger to prevent you from hurting yourself more, said the green-haired man, gently caressing her back while she sobbed. I'm a damn bad friend, the girl said while the green-haired man just listened to her vent. You're not, you're just having a bad day, Izuku commented as he continued listening to her. They both stood there while some students from other classes looked at them together, some simply walked past, others felt sorry for the girl and of course compassion for the green-haired boy for having to put up with her outbursts. The only thing I'll say is that your hand is very heavy, said the green-haired man, laughing nervously. Idiot, Momo giggled as she sobbed. Minutes later she looked at herself as she seemed to calm down and Izuku wiped her tears as he always did using his thumbs. Do you want to go home with mom? The green-haired man asked, watching her slowly shake her head. I have to do this. I can't disappoint Aizawa-sensei or you. I'm the vice president. I have to set an example. The girl said, looking down. Please don't leave me alone. The girl begged when Izuku smiled. I'll be right behind you, said the green-haired boy when he saw how Momo seemed to relax a little. With those words, both proceeded to enter the facility, where Momo was very close to Izuku seeking protection again. However, upon entering the classroom they looked at some of their classmates who were surprised to see them arrive together, but Momo's gaze fell on someone causing her anger to break out again. He separated from Izuku and at a slow pace and with a shadowed face he got close enough to hear a half. The next thing that was seen was a young man with a bird head with his eyes wide open and a look of shock at what had happened. You're to blame for everything. I hate you. I damn you hate you. It's all your fault. Momo shouted after attacking Tokiyami, leaving everyone in shock. It was such a tense situation. At that moment Izuku Midoriya ran towards Momo and grabbed her waist with enough force to stop her, taking great care not to hurt her. Kyoka stood up anyway and stood between her friend and Tokiyami, grabbing her wrists. Momo, look at me, Kyoka urged her unstable friend, who had her gaze fixed on poor Tokiyami. The bird boy regained his composure and seemed to listen as the brunette shouted everything she had kept bottled up from the depths of her being. Second stage of grief. Anger. It's all your fault. Your damn fault. Momo screamed desperately, wanting to get rid of all the emotions that were churning inside her, while Izuku and Kyoka did what was necessary to calm her down. Momo, calm down a little, remember where we are, Izuku said, being dragged a little, since the anger his friend felt was great. Look at me, Momo, Kyoka ordered, raising her voice so that the ex-Yaoyorozu looked at her while breathing very agitatedly. Now, let's breathe calmly. Do you remember what Mrs. Midoriya says? Kyoka asked while her friend's accelerated pace began to slow down. Momo's screams caught the attention of some students who were beginning to fill out the class. They were surprised to see the vice president screaming while Midoriya and Kyoka held her. Midoriya, Jiro, what are you doing to the vice president? Let her go. Iida asked, making Momo upset again. Let me go, Izuku. Let me go right now. The black-eyed girl shouted, seized with rage, seeking to continue attacking her feathered companion. Then Dark Shadow came to Tokiyami's defense, beginning to roar threateningly. Momo, please calm down. Don't do something you'll regret. Tokiyami is a friend. Izuku tried to reason with the vice president, who was once again breathing very heavily. A friend wouldn't ruin my life like him. I'm going to rip him off. Momo shouted as she started taking steps, moving Izuku while she released some needles from her wrist to sting Kyoka, making her let go of her. Damn, Kyoka complained, looking at the needles in her hands, to distance herself from the brunette. What's going on here? A female voice questioned, showing some annoyance at the screams and commotion created. The woman could see how Midoriya was clinging to the vice president while growling fiercely and threateningly. Yaoyorozu went crazy. She attacked Tokiyami, Mineta said, terrified to see a side of the sexiest girl of 1A that he never expected to see. A serious mistake. Momo was now staring at him angrily. The brunette threw a headbutt backward, hitting Izuku's face, causing him to drop it and fall to the ground, then began to approach Mineta, who began to shake like jelly. No, I'm not crazy. Don't ever say that word, because I'm not. Did you hear me, you damn perverted, stalker dwarf? Momo grabbed Mineta by the collar of his jacket, while Deku was helped to his feet. I'm not crazy, the girl shouted, creating a metal bar, but before she could even hit Mineta, Momo lost strength and fell to the ground, grunting. Momo, Izuku called with a little blood running down his nose, while Midnight showed her uncovered arm, which she slowly covered again while looking at the brunette in disappointment. Miss Momo, can you explain to me what's happening to you? Midnight asked with her arms crossed while looking annoyed at the one who was supposedly the smartest student in 1A. I'm not crazy, no. I'm not. Momo began to sob when the green-haired man took her in his arms, while Kyoka approached to see that everything was okay. Are you okay, Midoriya? Kyoka asked, receiving a nod from the green-haired boy. That question made Momo look up and see the injured green-haired boy. Izuku-kun. The girl murmured when she saw him hurt. She began to move her hand trying to reach the green-haired boy's wound, but the girl couldn't continue when he held her to his chest protectively. Shish, calm down, calm down. I'm here, the green-haired boy said, taking her in his arms. I'll take her to recovery, girl Midoriya mentioned while they heard her sobbing. Midoriya, have that bruise checked out too? Midnight asked as the green-haired boy left the classroom. At that moment, she saw how Aizawa was nearby, and when she saw that the green-haired boy was taking Momo away, she decided to find out what was happening. I just saw Midoriya carry Momo in his arms. What happened? Aizawa questioned, wanting to find out what had happened. We told you Aizawa wasn't ready, Midnight mentioned, making all of this seem very strange for the boys. Our classmate Yaoyorozu lost control and attacked Tokiyami, Iida explained, looking at his teacher in charge while the rest were worried about Momo's reaction. Namori, Aizawa asked, making her nod and leave. He would go see if everything was okay with the girl. Everyone take a seat. What I'm going to tell you is something very important and delicate. Surely some of you heard the news. It's necessary that you listen to this as a half-truth. Eraserhead said seriously so that everyone would take a seat. Those of 1A, upon seeing their sensei, followed the order, and once everyone was in their respective places, with the exception of Momo and Izuku, the man proceeded to speak. Miss Momo was expelled from her family by her parents. She is no longer a Yaoyorozu, the man mentioned, looking at his students who were in shock. Expelled? Ochako exclaimed in surprise as the man nodded. It was definitely something very difficult to process. But, is that even possible? Shiro asked, looking at his sensei. It is, Todoroki said, now being the one who had everyone's attention. Apparently he knew what had happened. It is an ancient custom, used only on those members who caused great shame or dishonor to their families. Todoroki answered very seriously and with his arms crossed. And this can't be remedied? Mina asked, returning her attention to her sensei, who was just waiting for them to shut up so he could continue talking. It's possible, but it requires the forgiveness of the head of the family. However, I wouldn't recommend it. Your partner is very emotionally damaged. She's practically lost everything, and right now, she's going through an internal duel. Right now, she's going through the anger stage. Any comment will make her angry and she'll look for someone to blame for her situation, Aizawa explained, looking at them all. Now I understand, Tokiyami said, lowering his head. Her anger towards me is because I defeated her in the sports festival. The boy commented. I am the cause of her dishonor, the boy with the bird head commented. It's unfair that you blame yourself for this, Tokiyami. Nobody knew that something like this could have happened, Kirishima said, wanting to cheer up his friend who looked more serious this time. Nursing. Recovery, help me please, Izuku asked, making the old woman who was drinking her morning tea end up spitting it out in surprise. You idiot boy. You're going to give me a heart attack, she exclaimed angrily before looking at Momo. What happened? The woman asked, looking at the girl who had fainted in the green-haired boy's arms. A stress and anxiety attack, the green-haired man replied. Quick, lay her down, the woman asked, watching as the green-haired man was placing Momo on the stretcher. Recovery put a machine on her to check her blood pressure. She was silent for a while and was quite surprised. She's worse than I thought. How did she end up like this? The woman asked, looking at the green-haired man. I'll answer that, Recovery-san. Midoriya, I trust that you take good care of Miss Momo, mentioned Principal Nezu, standing in the doorway. Several minutes passed, during which time the green-haired boy sat next to Momo, waiting for her to wake up, while Recovery was shocked by the things the director was saying to her. Now I understand why the poor girl is in that state, Director. As a nurse and healthcare provider, I think the young girl should not attend school until she has fully recovered, said the old woman, looking at Nezu. I understand, but that should be her decision or the person in charge of her alone, Nezu replied, watching the woman sigh in regret. Why did they always complicate her life like that? Okay, I'll talk to her about it when she wakes up. Is there anything else I should know? Recovery asked, leaning on her syringe-shaped cane. She's in a duel. The fact that she's here tells me she's already in the second stage, rage, the man commented, watching the woman nod, which meant they had to be very careful with her. Momo slowly began to wake up, everything spinning, so she put a hand to her face, trying to ward off the discomfort that was completely shaking her thoughts. She turned her face and found Izuku, who smiled kindly at her. Good morning, the boy greeted, making Momo surprised to see him hurt. Izuku, your nose, the young woman pointed out with concern when she saw some blood. It's nothing, I'm fine. How are you feeling? The green-haired boy asked curiously, watching the brunette look surprised. What do you mean it's nothing? She said, noticing they were in the infirmary and that she was lying on a stretcher. She stood up and then walked to the closet where she found cotton and alcohol. I did it again, didn't I? The girl asked with some concern. Let's just say you lost control just a little, the boy mentioned while in the doorway stood Nezu, Recovery and Midnight, who had just arrived to see how things were going. I'm so sorry, I don't know what happened to me, the young woman mentioned with embarrassment, while she began to clean the green-haired man's wound. You know that there is no problem with me, but I think you should apologize to Tokiyami, Izuku commented coldly to Momo. Bu. Apologize. W. Why should I apologize to that one? Momo questioned in an unhappy manner, then she felt Izuku's hand on hers. Momo, Tokiyami is our friend, he didn't expect this kind of events, the green-haired man commented. Are you on his side? The girl asked, her gaze lowered. Momo, there are no sides here, it's true that I support you and you know it, but I can't choose a side between you and Tokiyami. All of this was because of a fight. I was about to lose against Todoroki, but I defeated him and you don't see him attacking me, right? Asked the green-haired man looking at the girl. But, it's that if I hadn't lost, if only I had won, the girl said with tears in her eyes. If I had won, none of this would be happening, my parents would never have done this to me. The black-haired girl commented, beginning to break down. Wow, it seems to be starting to enter the negotiation stage, Nezu said. Let's leave them alone. The mouse man asked so that young Midoriya could take care of everything. If you want to prove something to them, then let me help you, Momo. I'll make you strong. I'll make you so strong that those people will think twice about having made such an absurd decision, explained the green-haired man. Are you serious? Momo asked, watching Izuku nod determinedly. You know that I never go back on my word, that is the path I took, the path I will follow to be the #1 hero. I want to be a hero that can spread a smile and give hope to others, and I can't do it. If you are sad, I promise that I will give you back the smile that has been stolen from you, but first. The green-haired man took the girl by the hand so she could see him. We have to make an effort together, said the green-haired man, smiling at her while Momo's tears ran down her cheeks. Hi, the girl replied, hugging the green-haired boy who hugged her back while Aizawa was leaning against the wall of the infirmary listening to everything. He couldn't help but smile. Well done, problem boy, commented the black-haired man, leaving them alone. It was a strange day. Izuku and Momo were together the whole time. They didn't go to any class for obvious reasons, however when classes finished, they both went to the classroom. Momo was very nervous about what she was going to do, while her classmates remained silent upon seeing her. At that moment, Shadow came to Tokiyami's defense, roaring at the brunette, who took a couple of steps back, but Izuku grabbed her hand, making her look at him. You can do it, encouraged the green-haired boy, looking at the black-haired girl. 2. Tokiyami-san, said the girl, looking away. I wanted to, said the young woman who didn't know how to start. I'm very sorry that my victory is causing you so much trouble, Momo-san. If I had known that something like this could happen, I could have given up to avoid it, the young bird had mentioned. These words surprised everyone, but Momo bowed. No, it's not true, I acted wrong, you won fair and square, I shouldn't have been so confident when we faced each other, Momo mentioned, truly regretful for her outburst. Mineta, forgive me for the things I said, they are things I think, but I shouldn't have told you that way. I'm not at my best, the young woman with black hair apologized, causing a drop of sweat to slide down the backs of everyone's necks at such brutal honesty. You can rest easy, but I recommend you don't get too close. Shadow isn't one to forgive easily, Tokiyami mentioned, watching the shadow growl in an annoyed manner. Momo-san, Iida called recently. Someone taught me that the last name does not make the person, it is the values that they grow up with and are guided by, commented the class president. Iida is right about that, Momo-san, our dear president, and no one will change that, Mina said with a smile. You're a good friend, one of the best I could have wished for, Kurosuyu mentioned, making the girl begin to feel how the burden of being a Yaoyorozu began to slowly dissipate with each word she heard. You're not that bad, I guess, but as long as I'm here, you have second place, Bakugo mentioned with his arms crossed to see how everyone was looking at him. Stop looking at me or I'll kill you. Shini, Bakugo exclaimed, annoyed, creating explosions. Everyone said things to cheer up the president. Izuku smiled, even Bakugo considered her someone worthy of respect. Guys, Momo whispered, covering her mouth as tears ran down her cheeks. Group hug. Toru shouted so that most of the boys hugged Momo, expressing their love and affection, while Izuku smiled and looked at Bakugo, who just looked away as if he didn't care what was happening. Meanwhile, in Aizawa's office, he looked at a paper in his hands. He couldn't help but feel a great weight on it, however a scare made him drop the paper. Hey Aizawa, Toshinori and I are going to eat. Come on, it looks like your lack of a little meat on those bones, the blonde with glasses exclaimed excitedly. I told you that when you come, you should knock on my office door, complained the black-haired man, rubbing his eyes. Come on Aizawa-kun, this place has Brazilian-style barbecue, it's something we can't miss, All Might commented behind the blonde, making the black-haired man sigh in regret. Well, just because I feel sorry for them, they won't stop bothering me, replied the man, taking the paper to put it on his desk. Are you looking at that document again? Mike asked curiously, looking at the dark-haired man. Come on, I want to go back early, Eraser replied boredly, leaving the pair of blondes behind. At that moment, when everyone left the room, the camera focused on a half-open envelope with a somewhat superficial text. Proof was the only thing that could be read, as there were other documents on top. Principal Nezu's office. 10 a.m. Fourth stage of grief. Depression. It's been 2 months since Momo reintegrated into Class A. Right now we can see how the principal was working in his office. Lately there was a lot of paperwork which had a lot to do with Class A. Reports of Kurashima Eijiro for hitting Monoma. Reports of Shoto Todoroki for silencing some loose mouths who spoke ill of Miss Momo. Even a suspension for Izuku Midoriya for dislocating Monoma's jaw to stop him from talking and laughing. Things are getting out of hand, the mouse man complained when he heard someone knocking on his office door. Come in, Nezu replied, looking at Aizawa. The mouse sighed in regret. Another problem with your class, Aizawa? Nezu asked, looking at the black-haired man. Fortunately not. There are no problems with them today, but I came for something important, Aizawa said, showing a document, which Nezu looked at with concern. So it's the big day, the director commented, looking at that sheet of paper. I need to show up in 3 hours, so I'll be gone for the rest of the day, Eraser said calmly. I didn't expect this day to come so quickly. I hope everything goes well and that nothing serious is involved. Do you want me to accompany you? The mouse asked, looking at the black-haired man. I'll be fine, anyway, I'll inform you of the results of the medical tests, said the black-haired man, who ended up leaving the office, while inside he felt very nervous about what they were going to tell him at the hospital. Meanwhile, in All Might's office, Izuku Midoriya was seen lying in a recliner. His mentor was silent while listening to his version of the story after the most recent events. I know I did wrong, but I couldn't allow Monoma to continue insulting Momo like that, the green-haired man defended himself while All Might sighed tiredly. Flashback. We can see how Kyoka, Momo and Izuku walked through one of the many corridors of the UA. The curious thing was that, having so many other corridors, precisely through the one they were walking, he had to appear. It can't be, but if they are the useless ones from Class A, at this point I thought they had customized vehicles that transported them like gods instead of mere mortals, mentioned that blonde guy who was accompanied by a huge guy with brown fur and sunglasses. Just ignore him, guys, let's go eat, Kyoka asked while Momo looked down, then the blonde smiled. But what do we have here? You are the girl without a family, I have seen you on the news, your parents are so ashamed of you that they expelled you, said the blonde, rejoicing. Monona exclaimed, the blonde's hairy companion, who was not happy at all, cursing that Kendo was sick that day while Momo had remained motionless while tears fell from her eyes. Hey, what's wrong with you, fool? Kyoka exclaimed, annoyed, watching the blonde smile, but said smile disappeared when a punch slammed into Monoma's cheek. Everything happened in slow motion. Izuku had activated One for All, green lightning surrounding his body while red lines were glowing, impregnated in his skin. He had a look of fury. Then, in a moment, Monoma was mocking him, and in the next, he had disappeared and gone through a wall. Fortunately for the blonde, they were on the ground floor, so he only ended up a few meters from the building on the outside. Monoma! The young beast exclaimed in terror, looking at his classmate. Midoriya, Kyoka muttered as she saw Izuku come out where Monoma went through the wall, drawing the attention of some students who were in class, as well as some teachers. The green-haired boy arrived where the blonde seemed to be regaining consciousness. He felt dizzy and his jaw hurt a lot, when suddenly he felt someone grab him by the collar of his uniform and he ended up looking at Izuku's annoyed look. "If you want to avoid me beating you up, you're going to apologize to Momo right now, but you'll have to crawl to her for her forgiveness," the green-haired man threatened, annoying Nito. "Oh, Eads Ogliom," the blonde replied with pain. The green-haired man raised his fist ready to hit him again but stopped when he felt something or someone hug him from behind. "Enough, you're not like that, don't continue, you're not like that, just stop please," Momo begged while hugging the green-haired boy who calmed down. He could see Monoma with a busted lip and simply let go of him, letting him fall. Then a voice made Izuku shiver. "Midoriya Shonen, to my office and have someone take Monoma-san to the infirmary," All Might ordered in his muscular form with his arms crossed. End of the flashback. Things are resolved by talking about Midoriya Shonen, especially when it comes to future fellow heroes. We can't let ourselves be carried away by our instincts like that. If we let ourselves be carried away by our basest instincts, we won't be any different from the people we fight in the streets, All Might commented seriously as he sat in front of the boy as if they were therapist and patient. At that moment Momo and Kyoka were walking towards All Might's office. Kyoka had her hands behind her neck as she walked next to her friend. "If you want to wait for him, we should do it at the exit or in the classroom," Kyoka commented, looking at her friend, who shook her head. "Izuku-kun couldn't feed himself, it's all because of me, now he's in trouble and I want to try to help him, I'll accept my share of the blame. Obviously, I'm not ready to go back, I only cause problems for everyone. Mrs. Midoriya, you, the boys." Izuku-kun, the young woman mentioned, shedding tears. "I only cause problems wherever I go." "Maybe they were right," Momo said, looking down, when Kyoka took her hands. "Stop thinking about those ungrateful people, they don't deserve your tears. Do you want to thank Izuku, the rest and me? Then don't let yourself be defeated. Raise your head, hold your forehead high and show everyone that it doesn't take a boastful last name for Kriti to be defeated," Kyoka mentioned, making Momo cry on her shoulder. Yeah, just let it out," the rocker said, embarrassedly patting her on the back. "I don't deserve a friend as good as you," Momo sobbed while Kyoka smiled. "Don't be silly, we're not just friends," Kyoka mentioned, surprising the brunette a little. "I would prefer that you consider me your sister," the girl said, separating herself a little to smile at her while those fragments of Momo, little by little, seemed to be joining together once again. "Hi," Momo replied with a smile while still shedding tears. "Okay, so you stop crying, come on, you're dying to see my brother-in-law, right?" Kyoka asked mockingly, making the brunette blush bright red, making her forget her momentary sadness. I say him, we don't," Izuku-kun, as Momo stammered, when Kyoka took her hand. Yes, whatever you say, let's go, it's getting later," Kyoka replied, making her walk towards All Might's office. That's when they heard their conversation. "All Might, let's be honest, you know how Monoma is. Do you really think he's going to change his way of being and thinking just by sitting down and talking? Every time Monoma looks at my classmates, it seems as if a group of hostile dwarves jumped inside his brain and said, 'Hey look, there's Class A, let's make a scene so everyone can see me for 5 minutes,'" Izuku said, sitting in the recliner, staring at his mentor. "Strange ideology, I understand it, but you must understand," All Might was interrupted. "Understand? You're the one who should be the first to understand it, All Might. I didn't do it for me, I didn't do it to show off or to see myself as an alpha male." That individual was insulting Momo, a very dear and close friend. You know how her life situation is currently. Although many say that she's not ready to return, that she should even consider giving up being a heroine, she makes her best attempt to come and continue as normal as possible, no longer as a Yaoyorozu but as Momo, the future heroine. Kriti. Izuku was furious, he clenched his fists so much that they were even bleeding. "I understand your position, Shonen, but the school has rules. I don't like things being done this way either, and it makes me very sad that Miss Momo is experiencing this." But the man was interrupted by the green-haired man. "At home I hear her crying every night until she falls asleep. I promised to be by her side, to take care of her. I told her that I would support her to overcome these obstacles which in themselves are already difficult for her. I will only tell her. If I have to be coming to anger management therapy, every time some idiot makes her feel bad, well, I recommend that you get comfortable, because I will not let Momo sink further into her own darkness. I plan to get her smile back and I will protect her at all costs, Midoriya declared, leaving his mentor silent. In the time All Might had known Izuku, he had never seen him so determined to do something. In his gaze burned the intense flame of one for all. I only ask that you avoid falling into conflict. We can't allow things to get out of control, All Might said, watching the green-haired man nod very seriously to leave through All Might's office, who felt a hand on his shoulder. Not everything is always about one for all, Toshi. You always lacked being more perceptive in that aspect. When the man turned around, he was alone, however he could swear that he felt and heard his late teacher. Once Izuku left the office he used to talk to All Might, he could see Momo blushing in embarrassment, covering her face with her hands, while Kyoka smiled. Girls, is everything okay? The freckled man asked, looking at his friends as the rocker's smile grew wider, while the president became quite embarrassed. Of course, right Momo? Kyoka asked with a smile, further embarrassing the brunette. Please don't make this more painful, the black-haired girl asked, making Izuku tilt his head in confusion. Meanwhile, at the hospital, Aizawa Shota stood in the waiting room, patiently waiting for his turn while deep in thought. A lot had happened, and everything would come down to the results of that day. Shota Aizawa, a nurse called, making the aforementioned stand up this way please, they are waiting for you, the woman announced. Eraserhead put his hands in his pockets and just walked forward to the office where they gave him the pass and asked him to take a seat. Good afternoon, Aizawa-san. How are you feeling today? The woman asked kindly, looking at the professional hero. So far so good, but right now what I'm interested in is the test results, said the dark-haired man with tired eyes, looking at his doctor. Wow, you're anxious, well, then let's go to the results, said the woman taking an envelope with Aizawa's name. The professional gave his consent to open that document and that was when the woman was able to see the results. So, the man asked, a little nervously, although he managed to hide his emotions very well under that poker-faced expression. Well, I don't know if this is good or bad news for you, but the test is positive, replied the doctor, passing the document to her patient. The black-haired man had a rather crazy ocean of internal emotions that hit him fiercely. Are you sure? Aizawa asked, looking up to see the woman nod. 99.999%, the woman replied to see how the man sighed. Now he had to think very carefully about what actions to take. Thank you very much, Eraserhead thanked, looking at the woman. The doctor nodded, watching him calmly leave. However, he stopped in a hallway, leaning against a wall. How am I going to say this? The man asked worriedly. Minutes later at a bar, Aizawa was seen holding a bottle of beer, which he drained as he returned his attention to the tests he had ordered. Of all the people you trust, I would have expected you to call Mike or maybe Shino, a male voice commented. The owner simply took a seat next to the dark-haired man. If I call Mike, he'll scream with happiness. If I call Shino, he'll reproach me for many things. If I call Nimori, she'll somehow escape or try to accelerate my plans, Aizawa commented while making a sign, and they brought 2 beers, one for him and one for his companion. Is it that serious? The man with the deep voice asked, and Aizawa saw a muscular, brown-haired man wearing a wild pussycat's uniform. Judge for yourself, the black-haired man mentioned, passing him the sheet of paper, on which it could be seen that everything was completely official. There was the hospital seal and the doctor's signature, along with the date on which the tests had begun and when the results arrived. The man took the sheet and began to look at what it was about while taking a sip of his beer, but when he looked more closely at what he was holding, he ended up spitting it out. Aizawa, for his part, drank calmly, as if he weren't at all affected. Is this true, Aizawa? Tiger asked, looking at his drinking companion. I wouldn't have called you if it wasn't true, Aizawa answered while Tiger noticed his friend was scared. Are you afraid people will react badly to this? The Pussycats member asked, handing the document back to her. I'm only afraid of what one person thinks about all this, the rest doesn't matter to me, Aizawa explained, drinking from his beer bottle. Tiger put a hand on his shoulder. It was obvious that he wouldn't leave a friend alone in this state. Meanwhile the scene changed to the Midoriya house where we saw Izuku, Kyoka and Momo find Inko ready to go out. Mom, where are you going? The green-haired man asked, puzzled by the suitcases the woman was carrying. I'm sorry to have to say it this way, guys, but I have to get out of town. I was hoping to say goodbye properly, but I have a very sick relative and I have to go see him, the woman said as a taxi parked in front of the apartment complex. Wait, Mom, all of a sudden, Izuku asked, worried, looking at the woman, while the three of them helped her with her luggage. I'm so sorry, dear, said the woman looking at the green-haired man who seemed a little nervous. Guys, I just want to tell you that I'll be back before you know it, the woman commented. Then Mrs. Midoriya turned to look at Momo and smiled. I know it's a lot to ask, but, girls, I trust you with my Izuku. I know you'll take care of him the same or better than I do, the woman mentioned with a smile, while hugging the girls in a maternal way. I owe you a lot, Inko-san. I promise I'll do my best, Momo mentioned as the woman gave the girls their space. You don't owe me anything, dear. What I did was from the heart and I'm glad that my son has the same values, Inko said to see her son. I'm leaving and none of us are pregnant, Izuku. I hope things stay like this. The woman joked, making the boys blush at the joke. In the end she said goodbye, hugging her children, and then left in the taxi, leaving them alone. Do I have to stay and make sure you don't do anything to Momo? Kyoka asked, her jaws twitching like angry snakes, terrifying Izuku, while Momo laughed. For the first time in weeks, Momo laughed naturally. Kyoka-chan, I think Izuku should be the one taking care of me and not the other way around, she commented amusedly as she turned around to go back home. Now I understand. I will help you without a doubt. It is a laugh that I would not mind protecting, Kyoka commented, following her friend while Momo looked happy somehow. Hey. What happened? Kyoka asked, looking at the black-haired girl while the green-haired boy looked at them from afar. I think everyone is right, Momo mentioned calmly. If the Yaoyorozu don't want me, then I'm not going to beg them. Throughout these weeks everyone has shown me that I don't need to be a Yaoyorozu to be happy. The only thing I need is the people who love me, commented the young woman with black hair with a smile. Final stage, acceptance. That afternoon Momo had finally accepted her loss. She was no longer a Yaoyorozu. She didn't need it when she had people who truly cared about her and loved her even with her flaws and faults, something that was demonstrated during her outbursts of anger. This was the beginning of a new Momo. Meanwhile in the office, Nezu looked at how Aizawa had called his closest friends. This had been a tip from Tiger. So in the principal's office were All Might, Midnight and Present Mike, waiting to know why Aizawa had called them. So Aizawa, how did it go at the doctor's? The director asked, watching the black-haired man approach and show the envelope to the humanoid mouse, who was surprised to see 2 sheets of paper inside, but even more surprised to see the contents of said sheets. Director, are you okay? Midnight asked, seeing the albino mouse's surprised face, who turned his gaze to the black-haired man. Now I understand why you've been acting the way you are these days. I just have to ask, are you ready for this stage? Nezu asked Eraser, who looked away. I don't know, but I'll have to. After all, it's my responsibility, the black-haired man replied in a serious tone. At that moment, Mike took the opportunity to look at the leaves in Nezu's hands and became excited. Oh yeah. I knew it, he exclaimed, taking the sheet that referred to Aizawa. I always knew it, ever since I saw her, our friend the super caterpillar, as a father, Mike shouted, making the room shake a little while everyone covered their ears. At that moment he watched as the pages fell open on the desk, revealing the contents. Paternity test. Subject: Momo Yaoyorozu. Within both pages you could see how Momo was compared to both men. How did you get both of their DNA? Midnight asked, looking at Aizawa, who shrugged. I know someone, the man replied calmly, looking at the woman. On the first page, these analyses showed that the only compatibility with the Yaoyorozu family was with the mother. Mr. Yaoyorozu did not share anything with the test subject. In the second sheet where the comparison was made with Aizawa, it was almost exact, having a result of 99.999%. Momo is my daughter, Eraserhead said, looking at his companions. Mike screamed like an excited fangirl. Nezu smiled, seeing that maybe things could be solved. Midnight had her mouth hanging on the floor and looked at All Might faint. The orange sky marks the sunset over the city. as many businesses begin to open their doors to workers seeking a respite after their shifts. We can now focus on one of these businesses, which had a rather peculiar name. At the bar we can see Aizawa Shota, who was focused on the beer bottle in front of him. I hope I wasn't mistaken, the black-haired man sighed with some regret, while the bartender calmly cleaned a glass. Flashback. UA. A couple of hours earlier, room 1A. Aizawa was watching his students take a break after doing some research during the day's class. We can see how Bakugo is challenging Todoroki, who ignores him while reading a book on how to successfully ignore your father. Behind Bakugo was Iida. The boy with glasses was asking Bakugo to control his temper, since it was not something that a student of UA should do, especially since classes were not over yet. Jiro for his part was with Kirishima, both were exchanging a couple of music discs. I hope you like it, it's a mix that I usually use during my workouts, nothing like a good 80s mix, said the redhead, making a very manly pose. It has to be good if you say it with so much enthusiasm, said the girl when she pouted before putting down her record. I hope you take good care of mine, it's original and autographed, said the girl, making the redhead tremble a little, who just nodded and gulped. Elsewhere, the quiet boys section was visible. We could see Shoji and Tokiyami remaining silent as they waited for the dismissal bell. Kota, taking advantage of his proximity to the window, managed to have a small group of sparrows on his desk, which he fed with biscuit and bread crumbs. The girls were talking to each other after Kyoka's return, where the rocker blushed at Mina and Toru's insinuations, because she and Kirishima were talking more lately. It was at that moment that Momo felt something lift her skirt a little, and when she turned quickly she could see Mineta with what appeared to be a fishing rod made from pencils and the detachable spheres from his head. If you want to see what's under my skirt, I'll take each of the balls from your head and make you eat them until they stop appearing in your head, declared the black-haired girl with a cute smile that left Mineta truly terrified. Momo is terrifying, mentioned a trembling like jelly, Minoru Mineta, who was clinging to a corner, while Izuku smiled somewhat nervously. Aizawa remained very serious at all times. The news about being the biological father of that girl had left him very thoughtful, and now he was looking for the best option to reveal the news to his daughter. It was so strange to say it. Imagination. Momo would like to talk to you in private, Eraserhead asked, looking at the girl. Of course, sensei. Izuku, my love, see you later, said the young woman, giving the green-haired boy a kiss on the lips. This really bothered the black-haired boy a little, but he remained calm. Once they were alone in the classroom, the man sighed. The time had come. But how long have you been dating? The dark-haired man asked seriously, leaving his student puzzled. Is that what you want to talk about? Momo asked, raising an eyebrow. Did you really want to discuss something so personal with her? I'm sorry, I didn't expect to make you uncomfortable. It's just that I was quite surprised to see how quickly your relationship has progressed these days. The man apologized for being so indiscreet. I think I understand, the black-haired girl replied, but may I know what it is you want to discuss with me? Or did you just want to know about my relationship with Izuku-kun? The former Yaoyorozu asked, looking at her teacher. What I'm going to say is something very delicate, the professional hero mentioned, feeling completely determined. Momo, I'm your father, Aizawa revealed while the girl smiled in a friendly way. The classroom fell into complete silence. No one said anything. Then Momo brought her hands to her cleavage and violently opened her shirt, leaving enough skin exposed, and then from her abdomen, she materialized a huge warhammer. Could you repeat those words? I didn't hear them properly, Momo replied, smiling steadily as she tapped her hammer against the palm of her right hand. End of imagination. Aizawa felt a chill run down his spine. The man shook his head and tried to regain his composure. At that moment he realized that his students were beginning to leave to return to their respective homes. I definitely need to be more careful, the man complained, holding the bridge of his nose tiredly. I need to talk to someone, Eraserhead said to himself, taking out his phone and starting to look at his contacts. All Might. Wasn't very busy. Mike. Not at all. He's a good friend but too loud. Midnight. Had class right now, so he looked at a number he hadn't used in a long time. Sensei, are you okay? Momo asked, bringing him back to reality. Seeing the girl made his heart race. Yes, I'm a little tired. A mission didn't let me sleep properly, the man explained, noticing that Momo was next to Midoriya again. You too, I see you've been getting along much better lately, the black-haired boy mentioned, blushing at the boys, who looked at each other and then looked away from each other. Well, Izuku-kun has been my best friend since that incident and he has taken care of me a lot, the black-haired girl commented, lowering her gaze a little. You should take better care of yourself, sensei. You and Izuku-kun are a bit alike, both of you give everything for others, even if you have to sacrifice yourself, said the black-haired girl, while the green-haired boy scratched the back of his neck somewhat embarrassed. I can see that you have really improved a lot. If you ever need help, remember that we are all here to help you, said the black-haired man, making the girl nod. Hi sensei, they both responded. Remember to do the shopping. Inko-san will be back in 2 days, Momo said while the green-haired boy nodded. While you're out, do you want me to make anything special for today's meal? Momo asked, looking at her friend. Whatever you want is fine. You've learned a lot and mom has only guided you with phone calls and video calls. The green-haired man ended up embarrassing the girl a little, while Aizawa returned his gaze to his phone. Let's get this over with, the adult said to himself while making a call. He had to wait a few seconds on the phone until the call was taken. Hello, the black-haired man greeted in his usual tired tone. Hello, it's been a while, said a voice behind the speaker. I know, I guess you already know the truth, Eraserhead mentioned as he began to leave his classroom. I don't know the whole story, but if you want to talk I'll listen, that voice replied. Can we meet? Aizawa asked calmly. I guess that would be a better way for you to explain the situation to me, the voice replied. I'll see you at the usual bar in 30 minutes, said the man, hanging up the call, without giving any further explanation. End of the flashback. Aizawa was deep in thought, even his drink warming from the constant contact with one of his hands. At that moment, a woman with auburn hair that ended at her neck walked through the door. She was wearing an accessory resembling a pink headband, but with a feline-like ear design, which matched the tail and white gloves she wore. Her clothing consisted of a red vest, similar to that of a marching band, with a vertical white stripe running down the center. This left her midriff exposed. She wore a ruffled red skirt held up by an orange belt with small pouches, which had a buckle resembling a cat's paw print. The gloves on her hands have padding on the palms and fingers, creating the image of cat paws. Her footwear consists of red boots with a thin white vertical stripe, while some fur protrudes from the top of her shoes. As an additional accessory, she wears a bell on her choker. Welcome back to the dairy bar, it's a pleasure to see you, the bartender mentioned while the newcomer raised her hand in greeting, then walked through the establishment. She simply approached the bar and ended up sitting next to Aizawa, who saw her out of the corner of his eye. Hello Mr. Barton, I want the usual, the heroine asked with a smile, when the bartender nodded to her request. A shot of milk with vodka comes out, the man mentioned, starting to prepare the woman's drink. You're late, it's strange, said the man with the tired eyes as a greeting to the woman. Well, you're the one who always makes me wait, she replied with a cute smile, then noticing that Aizawa was really having a bad time. Sashoda, I'm all ears, the woman mentioned when a bottle of milk appeared sliding down the bar. She placed her hand and caught the drink. The girl Yaoyorozu is my daughter, the black-haired man explained, causing the feline to start coughing at the shocking news. The heroine tried to catch her breath and looked in her friend's direction. Hey, do you know what you're talking about? How many of these do you have? The cat woman asked. It happened a long time ago, in fact, shortly before graduation, Kaoru Yaoyorozu, we had something to do with it, the black-haired man mentioned, remembering that day. Well, we all knew you liked him, but, are you serious? The woman asked worriedly, when the black-haired man showed her the paternity tests. I don't know what to say, Shota, Tiger had mentioned something, but we thought he was drunk, the cat woman commented, noticing the seriousness and concern on his face. So what are you going to do? The redhead asked curiously. First of all, I have to confront your mother, the black-haired man replied, looking at his empty bottle. Do you want me to come with you? The feline asked, placing her hand on Aizawa's. She had always been that kind of person. Warm, sweet, honest, always caring about her friends and companions. Shino, this is something I have to do alone, the black-haired man replied, turning to look at him. I understand, but what are you going to do with your daughter? Shino asked, looking at his friend. I have to tell her that she is my daughter. I am very afraid of her reaction. So far, she seems to be recovering from her loss with the Yaoyorozu. I don't want her to relapse and for that to be my fault. Aizawa explained, where the feline softened a little this time. Well, you have every right to keep it a secret, but she now moved her hand to Aizawa's face. Don't you think she has the right to know she has a father? The Catwoman asked. She's going to hate me and I'll hurt her. Our relationship at school will become very difficult if she finds out, Eraserhead mentioned, looking down. You may be right, she will hate you and your relationship will not be the same. But time can change things. She will not want to see you and it will hurt you, but as her father, you must let her know that you will always be there for her. Because that is what a father does, raise, scold and guide his children, because no matter how much they tell us that they hate us, seeing them grow, mature and achieve their goals is what will fill you with pride in the end, explained the woman, making Aizawa look down. You haven't changed at all, you're a real mother when it comes to giving advice, the black-haired man commented, asking for another drink. These words embarrassed his friend. Instead of making fun of me, you should be buying me a drink, the feline leader replied, adopting a proud demeanor to hide her sorrow. Meanwhile, we can see how Izuku returned home. He carried some bags because his mother would soon return from her trip. I'm home, said the green-haired boy while Momo peeked out from the kitchen. Welcome, said the young woman while the green-haired man looked at her. With her loose hair and that apron, she looked so homey. Midoriya's cheeks acquired a reddish tone. I took the time to prepare the bath for you, so you can take a shower. The food will be ready soon, the girl announced while the green-haired man nodded. Well, I'll leave the groceries on the table, the boy mentioned while the brunette returned to the kitchen. Izuku could notice a big smile on her face, as if she was enjoying what she was doing. It was strange, since she was always a rich girl and now, well, she was living with him and wearing two simple clothes. Momo, the green-haired boy called, and the girl said, yes. Are you happy? The green-haired boy asked, stopping her for a few seconds. Why do you ask? The girl asked, watching the juices from the food boil, creating a few bubbles. All your life you were used to luxuries, that's why. Midoriya was interrupted by the black-haired girl. I have a roof, I have a place to sleep and eat, I have clothes and people who love me. If anything, the only thing I miss are the expensive chocolates, but other than that, I'm not complaining. Izuku-kun, honestly, I have more with you and Inko-san than with the Yaoyorozu, explained the girl, turning around. Wait a second, the green-haired man asked, leaving the kitchen at full speed. Izuku, Momo called, watching him leave and close the door, leaving her behind. The food is ready, she said to the empty air as the green-haired boy activated his power and jumped, moving faster this time. Back with Aizawa, the man was outside the Yaoyorozu residence. Behind him was Mandalay, who raised her thumb in support. It was when the black-haired man touched the intercom and a voice was heard. Who is it and what do you want? A voice came through the device. I'm Shota Aizawa, a teacher at UA. I want to speak with Mrs. Yaoyorozu, please, said the hero, waiting for the answer. Wait a few seconds, said the man, walking a very long way to the owner, who was drinking from a glass of wine while reading a romance novel. Madam, someone named Shota Aizawa is looking for you, said the butler, passing the message to the security people. Shota Aizawa, she mentioned, somewhat surprised and with blushing cheeks. That's right. What would you like me to do? The butler asked, looking at his mistress as she waited for instructions. Let it pass, the woman asked, putting aside her drink and returning her novel to its place. Give him access, the man mentioned as the bars opened, giving him access. A servant is waiting for you at the entrance of the mansion and will guide you to Yaoyorozu-sama, the security personnel mentioned. Go, I'll wait for you here. Besides, I'm not in any condition to drive, the heroine commented, staggering a little. Aizawa simply nodded and walked a long way into the family's domain to the entrance of the house. This way, said a maid as she allowed him access to the Yaoyorozu home. Aizawa began to observe the place, and from what he could see there were only paintings of the couple. There was no indication about Momo's life in the mansion. Sir, they are waiting for you on this side, mentioned the young maid, making Aizawa advance, leaving behind that painting of the couple. Once he got to the common room he could see her once more. She looked exactly the same as the last time he saw her. Leave us and close the doors, Mrs. Yaoyorozu ordered seriously, watching as the maid followed orders and gave them privacy. Then the woman's expression changed to a smile. "Shota-kun, it's a pleasure to see you again. Come sit down," Yaoyorozu asked very happily. "I'm not staying," Aizawa mentioned seriously, while the woman smiled. "Oh come on, you can stay a while. My husband won't be upset that I'm talking to an old friend from the Hero Academy," the woman mentioned. "Come, I have your favorite sweets and I ordered some chamomile tea. I know how much you like it and how much it relaxes you," the woman mentioned, very excited to see him again. However, Aizawa didn't move from his place. "I came to talk to you about a very important matter," the hero commented, making the woman stand up and start walking in a very seductive way, wearing that passionate red dress that highlighted all her beauty. "Someone is still just as grumpy." Fortunately, the woman put her arms behind Aizawa's neck. "I know how to cure a bad mood," the woman mentioned, ready to kiss the black-haired man. Aizawa, having her in front of him, was weak and received that kiss on his lips. The woman's tongue moved and rubbed against the professional hero's, but then he reacted and separated from her. "Shota-kun, is something wrong?" the woman asked worriedly after being rejected. "I'll ask you not to do that again, and I'm just here to tell you a few things, starting with this," the black-haired man said, handing her the test results. "What's this?" she asked, confused, until she saw her husband's name, Aizawa's, and most importantly, Momo's. "Where did you get this?" the woman asked, somewhat nervously. "I had them made as soon as I found out about Momo's expulsion," Aizawa replied without taking his eyes off Mrs. Yaoyorozu. This is wrong, it can't be true, Momo is. I mean, she was Makoto's daughter," the woman mentioned, looking at the black-haired man. "It's funny that 3 weeks after our graduation you ended up pregnant by your husband. You always told me you hated him while with us. There wasn't a single night in which we didn't have sex," Aizawa commented calmly. "Well, I lied to you. I love him and he's a father. I mean, he was the father of our late daughter," the woman mentioned somewhat nervously. "I can't believe I'm actually in love with you. Don't worry, you don't have to do anything. I'll take care of my daughter," the black-haired man said, turning his back on Mrs. Yaoyorozu. "She is not your daughter Shota. She never was," Yaoyorozu exclaimed, starting to get annoyed by her platonic love's attitude. "The papers say otherwise," Aizawa said as he watched the woman tear them in half and then approach the fire in the fireplace so as not to leave a trace. "Those ones?" Yaoyorozu asked. "I'm sorry, they're no longer useful," the black-haired girl commented, very nervous and worried. "Those were copies. They convinced me to take them out before coming to talk to you," Aizawa replied in a neutral tone. You can't say it. You'll ruin us," the woman screamed, starting to get desperate. Then the maids opened the door upon hearing the commotion. "Just like they ruined Momo's life, huh?" Aizawa shouted as his eyes turned red, making Yaoyorozu back away. "I'm sure they didn't even hesitate to send her to the streets, hurt her emotionally and cause all that damage," Aizawa exclaimed angrily. "That you used me in the past for your purposes doesn't bother me. That you hid from me about Momo bothers me, but that you treated our daughter that way makes me furious," the black-haired man sentenced while Yaoyorozu felt scared. How much?" the woman asked fearfully. "What?" the man asked. "How much are you willing to pay to keep the truth from him?" Yaoyorozu asked, wanting to save her own skin. "Unlike the people who are afraid of you, I am not driven by money. I will only tell you because of our time together as friends at the academy. Do not get close to her. You did enough," the man sentenced, taking a deep breath and managing to calm down. "Don't worry, I know the way out," the man mentioned, leaving the woman very worried by Aizawa's words. With those words said, the man returned the way he came. At that moment a green ray passed by the side of the car, making Eraserhead blink, while Shino was lying in the car. "Holy Mother of God, I swear I won't do it again," said the feline, covering her mouth to avoid vomiting. "Did he take you home or do you want to go back to the bar?" Aizawa asked, making the feline smile. "Back to the bar," the feline exclaimed as Aizawa got into the car and they headed for the dairy bar. Meanwhile Izuku returned home and found the place somewhat dull. It took longer than expected, but he had made it. He began to walk and found Momo at the table using her arms as a pillow while resting her forehead on them. Momo, the boy called, making her raise her face. Izuku, he whispered, and then saw how the green-haired man showed a box of chocolates. They are not the fine chocolates you are used to, but they were a bit expensive for my taste, said the boy, watching as Momo stood up and hugged him. You're an idiot, you know that? Momo asked while Izuku was slightly blushing. He had already hugged Momo, but it was always to protect her or give her support. It wasn't necessary, but, thank you, the young woman thanked, separating and smiling at Izuku. 6:35 a.m. Darkness, cold and a lot of fear, is exactly what Kaoru Yaoyorozu is feeling right now. It's only been 48 hours since Aizawa, her love from the academy, paid her a visit with a warning not to do something stupid. Now she was sitting on the edge of her bed, her hair loose and disheveled, her clothes simply consisting of a black baby doll and black lace lingerie underneath. The woman hadn't been able to sleep properly. The bags under her eyes gave her away, since, whenever she managed to reach the point of rest, her mind would lead her to the same nightmare, or rather, her sweet dream would end, and she would have to wake up. Shota-kun, please don't do it, the woman begged, nothing, while a solitary tear ran down her right eye, sliding down her cheek and finally falling on the back of her hand. 6:35 a.m. Meanwhile, with the aforementioned Shota Aizawa, right now we can see how the black-haired man woke up a little disoriented. His eyes showed incredible tiredness as they were quite heavy. He tried to move his right arm but couldn't. It was surely numb, so playing it down, he moved his left hand towards his face to massage the bridge of his nose, hoping to eliminate the discomfort. What the heck happened last night? The black-haired man complained while he started to hear a very annoying buzzing sound. His head was killing him. I need about 3 or 4 aspirins. I can't miss you, eh? I have to talk to them about the camp, the black-haired man complained. I'll have Iida teach today's class and I'll hide in All Might's office to recover, the black-haired man mentioned to himself. Shut up, Shota. You talk too much and I can't sleep, complained a female voice next to him. Silence. Strain. Both of them opened their eyes suddenly. A very uncomfortable silence filled the room. The owner of the voice slowly straightened up, and when she managed to focus her vision, she ended up finding Eraserhead tucked into her bed, keeping her company. She had one of her hands resting on her partner's chest, but that was when she noticed that Aizawa's right arm was around her and resting on her hips. For his part, Aizawa was able to observe Shino. She wore her Eraserhead glasses around her neck like he did, while Mandalay looked at her bell necklace around the black-haired man's neck. Both of them were trying to come up with sentences, but none of them could come out of their mouths, only meaningless babble. It was then that Aizawa realized that they were both in their underwear, she wearing a very seductive red set and he wearing black boxers. Ah! Mandalay shouted, making her whole house shake. It didn't take long for her bedroom door to burst open and the rest of the pussycats and Kota appeared, who was ready to defend his aunt with a bat he was holding. Eraser, what are you doing here? Tiger asked, wearing a robe with a tiger skin design. He reached out to cover Kota's eyes with his hand, while Mandalay covered her body with her white sheets, revealing the raven-haired boy a bit and allowing Ragdoll and Pixie Bob to stare at the professional hero's toned body. That's what I'd like to know, Aizawa replied, looking at the group. It should be said that Pixie Bob started drooling a little when he saw Eraser with little clothing. How did this happen? Mandalay asked, very embarrassed. You only invited me to talk about something, and then, everything is a blur, the woman mentioned, hiding her embarrassment under that layer of white cloth. Peef, I think you guys have had one too many drinks, Ragdoll mocked, wearing a green jumpsuit that included a tail and a hood with cat ears. Ooh, I think I'm starting to understand the photos from last night now, mentioned Pixie Bob, who was wearing a very long blue sweater that reached her thighs, showing off her long legs. Photos? What photos are you talking about? Mandalay asked from under the covers, doing her best ghost impression. We'll give you privacy and you can meet us in the kitchen. There, I'll show you the photos, Pixie Bob mentioned. Come on, Kota, come with me, the blonde asked, wanting to get the boy out of there. Why does Aunt Shino have so few clothes on? And why is that guy with the face of a tramp sleeping in her bed? The boy asked his aunt's classmates. They were fighting, Tiger said quickly as they took the boy away from there. Then a giggle was heard. Goodbye, lovebirds, or rather, little lions, because I heard you all night, said the green-haired girl, since she was the one closest to the leader's room. Swallow me, Earth, Mandalay begged while Ragdoll left. This gave Aizawa the opportunity to gather his clothes. The top of his outfit was on a chair. The boots were one on the knob of Mandalay's personal bathroom and the other was on the terrace. Only his glasses were missing, which Shino was wearing, and well, his pants were hanging on the fan. "I'll just grab my things and go. I'm so sorry," the man apologized, turning his back on Mandalay, who blushed. The black-haired man's entire back had scratch marks. There was a bite on his neck and another on his shoulder, and some hickeys could also be seen. "What did I do, for God's sake?" she asked herself, terrified, her eyes spiraling. Then she simply hid under the covers. Meanwhile, same day and same other in another place. 6:35 a.m. Midoriya residence. Right now, we can see the apartment door slowly opening, and Inko walked in. The woman was happy to be back. She was wearing a burgundy sweater with a white blouse underneath and a beige skirt. She walked slowly into the apartment, pulling a wheeled suitcase with her right hand. "It seems that everything is normal," the green-haired girl mentioned. It was then that when passing through the living room she found two silhouettes. She smiled. Her children were asleep on the sofa. Momo had her head resting on Izuku's shoulder and the green-haired girl rested his head on the black-haired girl's, while the television was on the news channel. Midoriya opened a suitcase and slowly took out a blanket to cover them. Momo, feeling the warm blanket, only snuggled deeper into the green-haired boy. "It's still early. I think I can make you breakfast before you leave," said the woman, looking at her watch. Without further ado, Midoriya took his belongings to his room and then went to the kitchen to do the magic for which he had always been known. The minutes passed and we watched as the boys began to unconsciously react to the aroma of the food. That's when Inko approached and said it with a smile. "Izuku, Momo, your breakfast is ready," the green-haired girl mentioned, watching as they both began to move a little. "I'm coming in a moment," they both said, separating awkwardly with their eyes closed, but when they smelled food and heard Inko's voice, they both opened their eyes wide, and when they saw her they could only react in one way. "Mom. Inko-san," the boys exclaimed when they saw the woman back and standing at the entrance of the kitchen. They both ran and hugged her, making the woman feel very loved. She didn't want that moment to end, but she also couldn't allow them to miss school because she was back. "Okay, calm down, I'm here and I won't be leaving for a while," the woman commented amusedly as they hugged her like children seeing their mother return to the kindergarten for them. "I see you kept the house standing. I'm very proud," Inko mentioned, looking at her son. Then moving on to Momo. "It's not the same seeing you on a screen as having you in front of me. I would have loved to help you more to overcome your problem," Inko said when Momo took her hand. "He did it. He gave me much more than what I lost. A roof, food and the affection of a loving mother. Something that, if I'm honest, is still new to me. The Yaoyorozu weren't very affectionate unless I made merits to earn their affection," Momo mentioned very happily. Inko shed a tear that she wiped with the back of her hand. "I'm glad you think that way about me. Well, we can talk later. Now I want you to go and get ready. I'll finish preparing your breakfast and lunch," the green-haired girl commented with a smile while the boys nodded and headed towards their respective rooms. "These two are going to kill me for so much love," said the green-haired girl to continue with breakfast. The boys left their respective rooms wearing their school uniforms. Both smiled at seeing each other and then walked to the dining room. Inko was finishing closing their lunch boxes and then they proceeded to sit down to breakfast with the woman and thus catch up. It was a pleasant family breakfast. Although they didn't talk much, they enjoyed Inko's return, who saw them off at the door. Minutes later, the green-haired boy could see that Momo was in an excellent mood. Apparently seeing Inko back did her quite a bit of good. Now Midoriya and Momo were walking towards UA. The former Yaoyorozu was now humming a little tune as they walked, but from one moment to the next, she stopped, drawing her friend's attention. "Is something wrong, Momo?" Izuku asked, as the girl was looking in a different direction than UA. "What do you think if we stop by Kyoka-chan's? She also tends to leave for UA very late. Besides, it would be fun for the three of us to go together since you're my best friends," Momo commented, looking at the green-haired boy. "Sure, Kyoka's house is in that direction, as I recall," Izuku indicated. In this way they both changed the route. Their destination now was the house of the girl with the long earlobes. After a couple of minutes and several blocks of travel, they both arrived at their friend's house. However, something happened that they didn't expect. "Sorry guys, Kyoka-chan left at least 10 minutes ago," she looked a bit rushed, explained a beautiful woman with short dark hair. She was wearing square-framed glasses. Her clothing was like that of an office worker, a sleeveless white blouse, black skirt and pantyhose. However, the most striking thing were those long jacks, which she inherited from Kyoka. It's a shame. Well, we're sorry for the inconvenience. Momo apologized, bowing. The woman smiled. She was a lovely girl. Hey you, who are you? Why are you looking for my daughter? Do you have bad intentions toward her, anyway? A rather grumpy man questioned. He had toasted blonde hair. His clothes consisted of a wine-colored long-sleeved shirt, gray jeans, and pointy black boots. Izuku became somewhat nervous as he watched the man approach him with his hands in his pockets and the demeanor of a bully. Hey my name is Izuku Midoriya. Jiro-san, the green-haired man, introduced himself, very fearful of the overprotective behavior of Kyoka's father, whom he had seen for the first time, and from what it seemed, the man already hated him for looking for his daughter. You have long hair, he mentioned, taking a lock of Izuku's hair. I don't like boys with long hair. All men with long hair are criminals. You will never have my princess, said a blonde man with long hair, making those present sweat drop. Honey, they are Kyoka-chan's friends and classmates. They just wanted to go to school together, the woman commented, wanting to calm her husband. Well, we're leaving, Momo said, wanting to further avoid the awkward moment they were experiencing and, at the same time, free Izuku from the misunderstanding. If all men with long hair are criminals, are you the gang leader? Kyoka's mother asked, covering her mouth like a lady so she could stifle her laughter with her hand, shocking her husband. For their part, they watched as Izuku and Momo resumed their route to the academy, but, as they turned a corner, passing in front of an alley, it was then that they ended up encountering something they never believed they would see. In front of them and oblivious to what was happening around them, were Kyoka and Kirishima kissing passionately, the girl's hands around the redhead's neck, while Kirishima's hands rested on the rocker's waist. As much as I like doing this, Kyoka said between kisses with the redhead, we have to go. Remember that you must arrive early and almost starting Aizawa's class, the girl commented, feeling that she was short of breath at the long display of morning affection. I know, but it's hard to contain myself every time I see you. This whole hiding our relationship thing is getting a bit tiresome. Don't you think it's time to say it? The redhead asked, looking at the short-haired girl, who looked a little sad. I don't know, I want to say it too, but it's just that. Momo, the young woman with purple hair, said, remembering the black-haired girl looking away towards the street, automatically falling silent. I know, I'm worried about her too, but Midoriya does an excellent job. After all, they are best friends, said the redhead. However, Kyoka didn't pay attention to him. Momo, the young Jack, murmured. Well, if you feel comfortable telling Momo and Midoriya, we could start with just them, said the redhead, remembering his best friend. I think they got ahead of us, Kyoka muttered, making Kirishima turn in the direction the rocker was looking. Then they found Momo and Izuku with a shocked expression, eyes wide and wide open and their mouths hanging. Oh, replied the redhead, who scratched his head in embarrassment. The redhead and the rocker approached their companions. Kyoka's head was releasing so much steam that one could easily boil an egg. Hey guys, I think they discovered us, hee hee. Kirishima laughed, somewhat embarrassed while scratching the back of his neck. Since when? Momo asked, watching Kyoka look away and play with the tips of her jacks. Well, I wanted to tell you, but it was the day before the tragedy, Kyoka responded, embarrassed. I didn't want to tell you anything because, well, you were already feeling bad and it didn't seem right to me, the rocker commented, looking at her best friend, almost a sister. At that moment she saw Momo hug her, surprising Kyoka, while the boys just looked at the two girls. I'm so happy for you. If you're happy with Kirishima-san, I'll support you, Momo said with a relaxed and understanding expression on her face. You're the best, Kyoka commented, while Izuku and Kirishima had made it simpler. Congratulations, Kirishima-kun, the green-haired boy commented, embarrassing the red-haired boy, although I could swear that, well, Ashido-san and you, the green-haired boy mentioned. Oh, that, well, we did try, but it didn't work out. We preferred to be friends and avoid losing what we already had, Kirishima explained while the girls seemed to finish talking to each other. So what are you doing here? You guys always arrive early. For Momo, Being late is like getting a spoiler for your favorite movie, Kyoka commented, arms crossed. Oh. Hey, I'm not that exaggerated, you see, right Izuku-kun? Momo asked while the green-haired boy just smiled nervously. Well, Momo wanted to pick you up so we could go to the academy together, but when we asked about you, your mother told us that you had already left. The green-haired boy paused and placed his hand on Kirishima's shoulder. Your father-in-law is very scary. I feel sorry for him, the green-haired boy mentioned, sending a shiver down the redhead's spine. Why do you say that? Come on, don't leave me in suspense, Kirishima said, swallowing hard. Midoriya Kyoka was being surrounded by a frightening aura. Kirishima had to experience it firsthand. Izuku, seeing Kyoka's gaze, just started to tremble very nervously. Well, let's not waste any more time, let's go to the academy together, Momo mentioned, but Kyoka stopped her by grabbing her jacket sleeve. I'll ask you to keep it a secret, we'll tell you soon, Kyoka commented, making Momo nod at her words. Thank you, the girl said, a little more relieved. By the way, Momo, the rocker called her friend. You and Midoriya are taking a long time, the girl whispered, making Momo's face turn red. She loved playing that kind of joke on her friend. Kyoka, she shouted, embarrassed, while Kyoka grabbed Ejiro by the wrist and they ran off to get ahead of them. See you at the academy, Midoriya-san, Kyoka shouted, making Momo's face easily mistaken for a red traffic light, since she knew she was saying it for her, not Izuku. Sure, Izuku answered, confused when he saw Jiro running like that. Well, it would be better if we left too, the green-haired boy commented, so they both resumed their path towards UA. Upon arriving at their classroom, they saw Kyoka and Kirishima separated, one listening to music and the other talking animatedly to Bakugo, who was just snorting. Once the time arrived and everyone was present, Aizawa called Momo and Iida. I have important things to do. You and Momo will be in charge of making sure the class continues today. When it's over, I want you to make this announcement. Later, before the class leaves, I'll give you the details. For now, I'll leave everything in your charge, Aizawa explained, giving a paper to those in charge before leaving. What does that paper say? Momo asked curiously. I don't know, but we should follow the instructions. I suggest starting with a review of the previous class and then moving on to the next topic. If we finish today's lesson, we'll be able to see what the paper Aizawa-sensei gave us says, said the boy with glasses, making Momo nod. It was a long day and this is just beginning, Aizawa mentioned, who as he walked to the big blonde man's office, began to hear some laughter. When he opened the door, he found All Might, Mike, Midnight and Cementos, who were looking at the screen of a cell phone. The star of the night has arrived, Midnight said. The man moved forward and looked at his phone. It was then that when he looked at the phone he found a video and several photos. What do you mean? The black-haired man asked, his eyes almost popping out of their sockets. In one photo, Shino Sosaki was wearing the full Eraserhead costume, and in another, Aizawa Shota was wearing the Mandalay costume, which perfectly explained how they had switched accessories. A similar scene was taking place at the Wild Wild Pussycats headquarters, and we can see how Shino was blushing. Even Kota, her grumpy little nephew, was laughing his head off seeing his aunt and his friend with their hero costumes changed and singing karaoke. I swear I'm not drinking again, said both Aizawa and Mandalay. A new day had arrived at the Hero Academy, and with it we can see how the members of Class A and B were ready to leave on a school trip. Right now we can see how each group got on their respective vehicle with their respective teacher in charge, being Eraserhead for Class A and Vlad King for Class B. The vehicles started moving and the students had sat 2 per seat. Suyu and Ochako talked among themselves, hoping for the best of this trip. Iida gave information to Ojiro about what they should do when they arrived at the camp and if he could help him with the order. The blonde nodded, telling him that sometimes he could just let things take their course and relax a little. Shiro was talking with Shoji about the techniques he was eager to develop, while the masked man sat with his arms crossed. Kota played with a small ladybug he had found, while Tokiyami stood with his eyes closed, seemingly meditating. Izuku spoke in a low voice with Todoroki about the battle with Stein and proposing to train together to improve. The bicolor accepted. Kyoka and Momo looked at their respective cell phones talking to each other. Mineta and Kaminari took advantage of the fact that they were sitting behind both of them to try to spy on them. Mina and Toru looked very excited, so much that they sang together some songs that the invisible girl had on her phone. Sato looked at Aoyama. The Frenchman read a book with the cover Diaresis Brilliant and Divine Diaresis. This made him feel a slight chill. Kirishima for his part spoke to Bakugo, who was just silent, responding with him and HNN. Earphone jack. So, until when are you going to stop lying to yourself? Created. I already told you it's not like that. I don't understand why you insist so much on that subject. Earphone jack. Oh really? Created. Yes, really. Could we change the subject? Earphone jack. What if I told you that? I heard that Reiko from Class B is interested in him. Momo, seeing her friend's message, opened her eyes and slowly turned to look at her with surprise on her face, while Kyoka twirled one of her jacks between her fingers. Created. This is another one of your jokes, right? You always play really heavy jokes on me that have to do with Izuku-kun. Earphone jack. Why would I lie to you? Also, these beauties have never let me down when it comes to listening to information. Momo looked at her with her arms crossed. What was Kyoka doing spying on Class B? That wasn't right at all. She was about to scold her friend when she heard a new message notification. You could say I heard it by accident. Created. I hope it was just an accident. And, well, I can't. I mean, I'm not sure if I really like Izuku-kun. Momo turned to look at Kyoka and she had a poker face expression on her face. Earphone jack. So you're going to let someone else enter your land? Created. I don't think it's a good idea to consider Izuku-kun that way. He's not mine. It's true that he's my best friend and I have a great affection for him and his mother for all the support they've given me. Earphone jack. Kyoka rolled her eyes and interrupted her by putting a sticker. Diaresis blah 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 diaresis. It's always the same old story. Listen Momo, Midoriya makes you happy and I realize it, so if you're going to act, do it. Otherwise, I don't want you to get mad or sad because someone else won. Created. That sounds very cruel. You're supposed to be my best friend and you should support me if I get sad. I would do it if Kirishima did something to you and then I would make it clear to him what would happen to him for hurting you. Earphone jack. Hey, don't bring Kiri into this. Besides, that's how things are and you should know it more than anyone. Created. I know, but it scares me. What if he doesn't feel the same? Earphone jack. So you accept it? Are you saying you like him? Momo's face turned red and she hid in her hands. Kyoka smiled. She had her where she wanted her. Jiro nudged her, waiting for her answer. It took the brunette a few seconds before she started to respond. Created. Diaresis tal vez diaresis. Momo had a blush on her cheeks and looked away. Earphone jack. There is no maybe here. It's, do you like it? Or, don't you like it? Do you want to hug him? Created. Diaresis c diaresis. Earphone jack. Please him. Created. Diaresis c diaresis. Momo looked increasingly embarrassed at the intense conversation they were having on the phone. Earphone jack. And give him all your tenderness. Momo turned to look at him confused, while Kyoka held back her laughter, having gotten a little carried away. Created. You win, I'll tell him. Kyoka was ready to celebrate, however. Created. Diaresis puro diaresis. You must reveal your relationship with Kirishima to everyone. Now it was Kyoka's face that turned red and she looked away. She put her phone in her jacket pocket, while Momo looked at her waiting for her answer. That is playing dirty, the short-haired girl mentioned, looking away while Momo smiled. As the girls continued their conversation, Aizawa looked very thoughtful. It had been several weeks since he learned the truth about his ties to Momo. Diaresis, why can't I just tell her? Diaresis, the man thought, looking at Momo in the rearview mirror of the vehicle. She looked nervous while Kyoka seemed to be having a lot of fun again. Diaresis, is it the right thing to do? She already has a new life with the Midoriyas. What if I make her feel even unhappier? Diaresis, the black-haired man returned his gaze to the front. He was driving, he couldn't keep getting distracted, however, thoughts about his daughter wouldn't leave him alone. The journey continued until they reached a rest area, when everyone began to get off to stretch their legs. Bathroom. Where is it? Mineta asked desperately, being one of the first to get off the bus. Dude, I told you not to drink so much lemonade on the way, Kaminari commented, looking at the purple-haired boy. It was then that a car stopped, drawing everyone's attention, and two women got out. "Wow, Eraser, I didn't expect to see you here so early," a blonde in blue clothes mentioned, making her companion stiffen. "Thank you for supporting us in this," the man mentioned with a bow. "Hey, Mandalay, aren't you going to say anything?" the blonde asked, while the red-haired woman in red clothes was slightly shaky and blushing. "I'm Pooh Pussycat and I lead the Mandalays," the woman responded very nervously when she saw Aizawa. She didn't know how to control the situation. Shota on the other hand looked calm. "They are professional heroines who will support us during our stay," Eraserhead explained to his students who didn't seem to understand the situation. "Oh my god, you are the Wild Pussycats." They created an agency of 4 veteran heroines. Upon hearing that word, that blonde woman ran and grabbed his face. "What veteran? I'm 18 years old," the blonde woman mentioned, taking the green-haired man with her feline glove. Izuku just sweated while the rest watched Deku's curious interaction with the woman. Kyoka laughed a little at Midoriya's luck. She tried to make a joke, but Momo looked too serious, so much so that in front of everyone she grabbed Izuku by the collar of his clothes and pulled him towards her to free him from her grip. "I don't think attacking a student is part of your duties as a heroine," Momo declared seriously as she held the green-haired boy protectively against her chest. "We're getting off topic." Momo let go of Midoriya before he passes out from lack of air, the man asked with a serious voice, although inside he wanted to make the green-haired man suffer. The girl slowly looked down and found the green-haired man having his cheeks crushed by her generous bust. Mineta was crying blood, while Kaminari was pulling his hair. He wanted to be in Midoriya's place. Momo quickly released the green-haired boy, causing him to fall with his eyes spiraling, while the black-haired girl looked very embarrassed. However, something even bigger was about to be unleashed, because from the car from which those heroines got out, a short boy could be seen getting out upon seeing someone he knew. Once he confirmed his doubts, the bomb exploded. "You're the man who was in my Aunt Shino's bed," the boy exclaimed while pointing accusingly at Aizawa. The man stiffened as did Mandalay, while now it was the students who were looking at the aforementioned. "What?" all the students shouted while Aizawa turned his back on them. They could see some smoke coming out above his head, but the man did his best to stay calm. "Do it?" Aizawa asked, and so Pixie Bob bowed to the ground. The boys were too shocked by the news of their teacher and the professional heroine to realize what was happening. "Kittens that don't arrive early won't eat," Pixie said with a mischievous smile. "If you hurry, you'll arrive before noon," the blonde mentioned. Then the earth exploded and all the students of Class A flew through the air. "Momo!" Izuku shouted. This made Aizawa turn around when he saw the young woman in the air. "Izuku!" the girl shouted, watching the green-haired boy stretch out. She felt like he wasn't going to reach her. Both were falling at great speed, however for them it seemed that time was going very slowly. At that moment a strange black figure came out of Izuku's fingers, surprising him and the girl. It moved erratically, but in the end it ended up enveloping Momo and bringing her closer to the green-haired boy. Then that thing disappeared. No one seemed to notice what Izuku had just done, as they were more scared of themselves and how painful the fall would be. Each of the boys began to fall to the ground, all the while letting out moans of pain. "Training starts right now, just keep going until you reach camp," said the blonde with a smile. The boys began to get up from the ground and began to help each other stand up. Mineta, upon standing up, decided to run straight into the bushes, as he still wanted to go. "Are you okay?" Izuku asked, causing Momo to open her eyes and find him underneath her, her bust pressing against the green-haired boy's flat chest. "Hi," the black-haired girl replied, looking at the green-haired boy with some confusion. "Are you okay?" Momo asked with a worried expression, not realizing that they were ignoring everyone and now they were becoming the center of attention. "My back hurts a little, I'm going to live," the freckled boy chuckled, while Momo smiled. "Careless fool," the black-haired girl mentioned. "Ahem," a voice called, causing the couple to turn around and find Ochako. "I don't think it's time for what you're doing," the young woman said with a voice that showed a bit of jealousy. "Doing?" Momo said, curious to notice the pose. "That?" Izuku asked, who also realized that everyone was looking at them and that they were in a somewhat compromising position. "Hey, don't ignore me," Pixie Bob shouted when he saw that the kids were more interested in something else than the instructions he was giving. Without further ado, the boys stood up somewhat embarrassed, then they heard a scream of terror, which belonged to Mineta. "I'm sorry, I thought you were a tree," the boy shouted, running away terrified, while a wooden creature with a very peculiar smell followed Mineta and looked very angry. At that moment, ice spikes began to emerge from the ground to drive the beast away from them. "Please calm down, we don't want to hurt you," Kota mentioned, wanting to use his gift to calm the creature, but this didn't work. "How strange, Kota-san can't control it with his quirk," thought the green-haired boy. "Izuku, Kota can't control it because it's made of earth," Momo mentioned, guessing the green-haired boy's thoughts. "It's not an animal," Izuku said, making the boys get to work. Todoroki raised a wall of ice to keep them separated. Iida started the engines and gave him a powerful kick, and then Bakugo took the opportunity to create an explosion and blow him to pieces. "Shine!" the blonde exclaimed his typical attack phrase. Izuku was about to launch himself to deliver the finishing blow, but a sound wave got ahead of him looking as Kyoka had launched her attack, and then Kirishima received it with a punch, splitting the creature. "Not bad, kids, but it's not the only creature you'll find on your way. This forest was baptized as the Forest of Monsters. Now I'll repeat it. Try to get there before sunset. Now it's 10:01 a.m. You just have to go straight," Pixie said as Mandalay was still in shock by the words of her nephew, who was looking at Aizawa with a bad face. "Pay attention, there are more coming," Bakugo mentioned, looking in the direction of the forest where a flying creature similar to an earth dragon was now present. "Izuku, let's finish this, there's something we need to talk about and I think you know it too," Momo mentioned, opening her blouse to reveal a black sports top, while exposing her stomach and arms. "Hi," Izuku replied seriously, watching as the beast launched itself at the rest of his companions. The hours passed, and as they advanced, the Class A boys were seen defeating more and more creatures, showing off their skills and teamwork. It was a long journey, it took them longer than they had expected. The sky was turning orange, and the boys looked very worn out and tired as they approached the entrance of the facilities, where a more responsive Mandalay, Pixie Bob, and Aizawa were waiting for them. There, Aizawa mentioned calmly when he saw his students appear. However, his gaze fell on Momo. The girl was showing a lot of skin and that made him a little uncomfortable. What was this girl thinking? "Wow, they took their time," Mandalay commented with her arms crossed, but standing next to Aizawa, a light blush adorned her cheeks. "I'm dead," Siro said, shuffling his feet. "Attitude, comrades, we are close, we must not lose our courage," Iida mentioned, limping on one leg. Apparently he had hurt himself while using his reciproburst too often. "Shiny," Bakugo whispered, wanting the boy with glasses to shut up. He was so tired that he didn't even have the energy to insult him, while Todoroki had a part of his body frozen from the constant use of his ice abilities. Mineta, Kaminari, and Kota looked like zombies from a horror movie. The curious thing was seeing the electric blonde stumble and crawl on the floor. Once everyone arrived, a group of them sat on the floor to rest. Among those who sat were Kirishima and Kyoka, both of them sitting back to back. "How are you feeling?" the redhead asked, letting out a sigh. "I'll live. When you stop being so tired I want you to carry me. I don't care what the others are going to say or think," Kyoka declared, trying to catch her breath. "Are you sure?" the redhead asked, turning his head slightly to get a better look. "You have 20 seconds before we go inside and you change your mind," Kyoka said, feeling her boyfriend's hand on hers and only blushing a little. "Well, now that you are here, what you will do is the following. You will eat in the cafeteria while you take a bath and then go to sleep, because tomorrow the real training begins," Aizawa sentenced, looking at everyone entering. It was then that Kirishima decided to accept Kyoka's proposal, which he did not expect, to take her as a princess and begin to walk with her in her arms, leaving everyone with their mouths open. However, Momo was smiling. Apparently, Kyoka would fulfill her part of the deal, which meant that she should fulfill her part of the deal. After a good meal that the pussycats themselves cooked for the students of Class A, everyone entered some nice hot springs, or well, it seemed that was everyone, since outside the baths, Izuku and Momo were sitting on a bench, both wearing very comfortable robes. Deku's was blue and Creedy's was pink. It was getting dark, and the sky was filled with stars. The peace of the area was almost too pleasant, as silence reigned. A silence that was interrupted by Momo. After going through so much, it's strange to be in an area where silence reigns, don't you think? Momo asked the green-haired boy while looking at the stars. Yeah, to be honest, it's quite nice, the boy commented when they heard Mineta's scream in the distance. Apparently he was doing mischief in the showers. Izuku, Momo said, turning to look at him. I don't know how I did it, Momo. I just know that seeing you fall filled me with stress. I felt like I wasn't going to reach you and I was really scared knowing that you were going to hurt yourself. The boy explained, looking at Momo. Then she took the green-haired boy's hand, making him blush. In that case, we have to find out what it is. It could be a secondary quirk, Momo mentioned with excitement for her friend, not knowing that two people were near them. Hi, I'm counting on you, Momo, the green-haired boy replied. That again brought silence to the area. The black-haired girl just did what she did at home. She rested her head on the green-haired boy's shoulder while the girl's hand remained on the freckled boy's. The minutes passed calmly. It was a very relaxing moment while Momo, after thinking about it a lot, took courage. She was determined to say it, while the two people watching them were attentive to what these two were going to do. Izuku, Momo called, hearing a diaresis. Diaresis, there's something I want to tell you, the young woman mentioned, who closed her eyes and took courage. Her face was red. Izuku, I like you. At that moment Momo realized that the green-haired boy was nodding and that his breathing had changed. Midoriya had fallen asleep with her by his side. Momo calmed down, feeling that all the stress of revealing what she hid so much was slowly fading away. Maybe it's still too soon, Momo mentioned, letting out a sigh and feeling relief, because she felt some fear because things would change when she revealed her feelings to the green-haired boy. What Momo was about to do did not go unnoticed by either of the two who were watching. The first person left, while the second was discovered. What are you doing here, Eraser? Mandalay asked, ready to take a shower with the rest of the girls. It's hard being a father, the black-haired man mentioned as he walked away from the area. It was then that Mandalay noticed the green-haired boy and his friend's daughter standing very close together. Meanwhile, somewhere else, right now we are in an elegant house where you could see a hooded silhouette sitting in an armchair in front of a man. Said man was brown and had a strange beak-shaped mask. He wore a green coat with a furry and purple collar. He wore elegant clothes underneath and silk gloves, while with his right hand he caressed the head of a little gray-haired girl who kept her gaze on the ground. Well, Mrs. Yaoyorozu, since you are willing to do it and are paying quite well for the favor, you can count on us, mentioned that guy looking at a photo in a magazine where Izuku and Momo were escaping from the media. These two are going to disappear, sentenced the man seriously while the aforementioned took off her hood, revealing herself somewhat haggard. Thank you, the woman responded gratefully to that dangerous man. 4 days have passed at the Pussycats camp and the training has been hellish. According to Aizawa-sensei, they sought to make us explode our limits, plus ultra, but, for some reason, Aizawa-sensei was very focused on me. According to him, All Might had told him about my training and now I'm doing this. Diaresis. Right now we are in an area somewhat removed from the rest of the students. Aizawa was standing with his arms crossed and in complete silence while he was watching that our green-haired friend complied with the training from start to finish. The green-haired boy was sweating and his arms were shaking excessively, but the boy wasn't willing to give up. The training was to help him improve and become a future hero. He had already passed the hardest part of fulfilling his dream, so now all he had to do was train hard. There you are, said a voice behind the black-haired man. Eraser had turned his head and found Mandalay. What are you doing here? I thought you were supervising the rest, the black-haired man mentioned, returning his gaze to Midoriya, who continued his training despite how exhausted he currently felt. We decided to give them a break. You should do the same. You've been overexploiting it since that happened, the feline whispered. The black-haired man looked away proudly. I don't know what you mean. I'm just following the instructions his mentor gave me for Midoriya, Aizawa explained with a calm and monotonous voice. However, he had a swollen vein on his forehead. Flashback. It was afternoon and the boys from Class A and Class B were working together during lunchtime. Each one had their respective tasks, from getting wood to light the fire, to cutting the ingredients that would be used. However, right now an idea had occurred to them. Well, since I still see a lot of energy and strong rivalries, we will have a cooking contest. The best dish will give you benefits. such as entering the showers first and choosing training routines, Mandalay told the kids. This will be too simple. I doubt that those in Class A even know how to use a spoon properly, Monoma mocked, when he received a blow from Kendo. I'm sorry, the young woman apologized, pushing the blonde away and sitting him down with his head resting on one of the tables. Okay guys, one of you will be a judge alongside us, while 5 of you per class will participate in the contest, Pixie Bob explained, watching as the participants were now working as quickly as possible, while the rest just had to wait. The contestants from Class A were Tsuyu, Kirishima, Bakugo, Sato and Midoriya. On the side of Class B were Kendo, Awase, Sensuna, Shota and Komori. Apparently they were the ones who were best at cooking, according to their classmates. The pressure cookers were kept at a very high temperature. Bakugo, Kirishima, Shota and Komori were in charge of cutting the food for their respective teams. Dude, I feel like I'm in Food Wars, Ajiro exclaimed with a big, sharp smile full of excitement, then transferred all the ingredients to the pot that Tsuyu and Sato watched while seasoning with some spices. Don't be an idiot, you crappy hair. Be more careful, you can't put anything in the time, Bakugo roared, starting to handle the knife to speed up the process while on the other side things looked calmer. Wow Komori-san, your mushrooms will be a hit, Awase commented making the girl smile. It's my gift, my curse, she commented with a mocking smile, because she had created different sizes, textures and special flavors. Midoriya, once you finish washing the vegetables, take them to Kirishima and Bakugo, then I'll need you to get me some cilantro and oregano, said the burly brown-haired boy. Hi, Sato-san, the boy replied with a smile, who complied with the order, although Bakugo yelled at him a couple of things for giving him more work than necessary. Time passed and now he saw everyone waiting patiently. Even Monoma had woken up, so when he saw Izuku walking near him, he ended up coming up with a prank. Midoriya-chan, could you set up the judges' plates? Tsuyu asked, using a ladle and a small bowl to sample what they had achieved as a team. Hi, the green-haired boy replied with a kind smile. The boy now placed the plates for Aizawa, Mandalay, Pixie Bob, Ragdoll, Tiger, Vlad and 2 students, Momo and Yui Kodai, who were chosen as judges. I feel like we're just wasting our time, Aizawa mentioned uncomfortably, sitting at the judge's table next to Mandalay, while the seat next to him was empty and belonged to Momo. Hey, they're kids, maybe they came to train but they also have to rest and relax for a while, Tiger commented, wanting to calm his friend and teammate a little. Momo and Kodai were heading to their places. Midoriya was going for the second round carrying everything that the judges would use. However, at that moment they saw how Izuku stumbled while the most blatant "oops" that Monoma could give was heard. The plates fell to the floor, but it was not the only thing that fell with Deku. Midoriya-kun, wait, I'll help you, Iida exclaimed, wanting to help his friend, while several of those present gave the blonde a dirty look, who mocked him when he saw that Izuku wasn't the only one to fall. For his part, Tenya blushed when he saw the small accident that the green-haired boy was facing at this moment. Izuku was on the floor with his eyes wide open. An uncomfortable silence reigned in the area. Aizawa had a swollen vein on his temple, while he watched as one of Izuku's hands was on one of Momo's breasts, but that wasn't the only thing that was happening there. It can't be. Midoriya stole a kiss from Momo, Mineta shouted, his hands on his head, breaking off a couple of spheres in frustration and jealousy. The people involved blushed and the green-haired boy quickly separated himself from Momo with his eyes spiraling, while Momo was in the same situation. I'm so sorry, Momo, I don't. The green-haired boy stammered while Aizawa got up from the judge's table. At that moment Mandalay and Pixie Bob jumped on him. That damn broccoli with legs is too trusting with my daughter, Aizawa screamed internally. His eyes were red like a demon's while the pussycats tried to calm the anger of an inexperienced father. Eraser, calm down, said the adults, who were ignored because for the kids it was more interesting to discover perhaps the first couple of Class 1A, without knowing that one already existed within said class. End of flashback. What bothers me the most is that Midoriya can be around her without it looking weird, the black-haired man explained his point. Wow, I never thought you were a jealous man, poor thing, the brunette laughed. Hey, but seriously, isn't the embers a bit excessive? Mandalay asked looking at the green-haired man with his abdomen completely soaked in sweat. The embers will teach him to control his temperature and also that if he gets tired and falls, he will burn himself. Aizawa answered looking at Izuku. How many do you have left? The black-haired man asked looking at Izuku. 123 the green-haired boy said, climbing with great effort, while some silhouettes in the distance approached when they found Izuku 77. I'm missing 77 the boy said, clenching his jaw very tightly. Look there's Deku, Uraraka mentioned, watching him approach, but Aizawa turned around and shook his head. I won't let you interrupt Midoriya's training, he was almost finished, if you plan to stay do so but don't distract him, said the man returning his attention to his student. Aizawa-sensei, this seems more like a punishment than a training Momo commented, dissatisfied, seeing how her friend was doing his best to avoid falling into the embers that were under his torso and abdomen. I'm just helping Midoriya with his training. This is something we used to do when we were students, these are things that veterans did in their golden age, Aizawa explained, seeing that the boy, despite looking very tired, had no intention of stopping. At that moment then, Momo, Uraraka Mandalay and Aizawa watched as Kirishima, Todoroki and Iida took off their shirts and threw themselves on the ground face down, then settled into the same position and accompanied their friend in this. Guys, what are you doing? The green-haired boy asked, confused, while watching his friend smile. We won't leave you alone in this, friend, we are together Kirishima replied, making Bakugo annoyed at being the only one who wasn't on the ground like them. Hey, do you think I'm going to let you guys get ahead of me? I can do much better than you guys, Katsuki said, taking off his shirt and settling in next to Eijiro, while Izuku was surprised, even Kachan. Go ahead Todoroki-san, make the ember be under us too, Iida asked. The two-colored-haired boy nodded and the ember was under everyone. Sato, Shoji, bring the rocks too, Iida asked while the aforementioned began to arrange the rocks like Izuku. Guys, the green-haired boy murmured, surprised to see them waiting for something, except for Bakugo who was doing push-ups in an exaggerated way. You set the pace, Izubro, the redhead mentioned. Fine, from zero the boy said, surprising Aizawa. Then the boys began to follow Izuku's pace, while the rest began to count the push-ups. The goal was 200. 47 minutes later, the boys were exhausted and sweating a lot. The girls from Class A approached with towels and passed them to the boys. However, before Momo could give Izuku one of these, Uraraka got there first. Deku-kun. Here, Uraraka was now offering him that item. Momo watched as the green-haired boy received the object politely and began to wipe the sweat from his body. Ochako couldn't help but blush, because all he did was jump to help his friend first before Momo did. Thank you very much, Uraraka-san the boy mentioned. Momo sighed in regret, while Todoroki approached and she gave him the towel, something that did not go unnoticed by Izuku, who felt somewhat strange. Don't let that bother you, if you're sure about what you feel, just tell him, the boy commented as he left with the towel around his neck. Momo now watched Izuku talking with his dearest friends. Iida congratulated him on the type of training he was doing and told him that if he allowed him, he wanted to be part of that regime to become a better hero. Momo sighed tiredly, but when she turned around she saw something that made her smile and take Todoroki's words more seriously. Here, you stink Kyoka said throwing a towel to Kirishima. The purple-haired girl turned her back on him with a blush while crossing her arms. The redhead smiled. He loved that side of his girlfriend. I know, replied the redhead with sharp teeth, as he began to wipe away the sweat. Hey guys, you better go take a shower, because tonight, we're all going to have fun. We'll have a test of courage, Class A versus Class B, Mandalay mentioned optimistically, drawing the boys' attention. Izuku Momo called. The green-haired boy, upon hearing her voice and seeing her approaching, couldn't help but blush. The incident from days ago was still etched in his memory. Momo, hello, do you need anything? The freckled boy asked, while Uraraka was now the one who became serious upon seeing the brunette. Well, since you're going to take a bath with the boys, I wanted to know if, do you want me to make you something to eat? You must be hungry after all that exercise, the black-haired girl commented, this not going unnoticed by either Aizawa or Uraraka. I wouldn't want to bother you, you must, Izuku commented, slightly blushing, while Momo smiled. It's not a bother, it's something I do a lot when we're at home, the girl replied. Also, you'll need strength for the test of courage. Momo explained, making the green-haired boy turn to look at his friends. Shoto and Tenya nodded. Kirishima gave a thumbs up with a smile and Bakugo groaned and looked away with his arms crossed. Okay. I really appreciate the gesture Momo, thank you, mentioned the green-haired man while Momo became very happy to hear those words. Well, we'll go take a bath. Excuse me girls, Aizawa-sensei, Mandalay-san, Iida said so the boys could leave as a group while Momo was preparing something to prepare for Midoriya to eat, but she was stopped by someone. Do you mind if I accompany you? You know, Kyoka said while Momo nodded. Don't worry, you'll be able to see what Inko-san has been teaching me, I've improved a lot, Momo commented happily. Can I join? The kids worked really hard today, and I think the best thing we can do for them is make them something delicious, Uraraka said. Momo wasn't feeling comfortable this time. Ochako had been acting very strange around her for days. Sure, the black-haired girl answered somewhat unsurely, and so the three girls went back to the facilities to prepare something, while elsewhere Pixie Bob and Ragdoll were seen talking to those in Class B about the test of courage. Right now we can see how the boys were relaxing after trying to overcome Midoriya's training. The green-haired boy looked somewhat confused with what he was experiencing lately. The confusion was so much that being near Momo made him too nervous, something that had not happened for a long time. Are you okay with Midoriya? Tenya asked from beside him. The green-haired boy snapped out of his thoughts to check on his friend. Yes, don't worry Iida-kun, I'm fine, Izuku replied, looking at the boy with glasses. You know you can tell us anything, after all we are friends, Kirishima mentioned, animatedly putting his arm over the green-haired boy's shoulders. Speak for yourself, I'm not friends with a good-for-nothing crying nerd, Bakugo mentioned with a wet towel on his face. I love you too Kachan, Izuku replied with a drop of sweat running down his neck. Midoriya, is something going on between you and Momo-san? Todoroki asked, making Izuku blush. Why do you ask? Izuku asked very nervously, making the bicolor just look at him. It's not that I'm very interested in these types of topics, but, you're my best friend and I consider her a good friend. Days ago you seemed very protective and you didn't leave her side. Your friendship became very strong, but, since the kiss happened. With those words Izuku just slipped into the water. The only thing that was outside were his eyes and his green hair, while bubbles came out that he produced out of embarrassment. The detective does it again Kirishima mocked a little, while now the attention was on the green-haired man. Midoriya, do you like Momo-san? Todoroki asked calmly, causing Izuku to fall silent with that question. Diaresis, am I in love with her? Diaresis Momo is a very good friend, she's very pretty and affectionate, now she's like family to me, but... Love of that kind, Diaresis the green-haired boy thought, the bathrooms falling silent, until Bakugo began to move uncomfortably. Damn ridiculous exercise, my back is killing me, complained the blonde who couldn't find a position where his back didn't hurt. Do you want me to rip it off for you? Kirishima asked. You come closer and you die, Bakugo sentenced sternly. Iida, for his part, tried to calm them both down, while Todoroki continued looking at Izuku. His friend looked seriously very thoughtful, perhaps he should address the issue when they were alone, in a more trusting environment. Meanwhile, at the entrance to the forest, one of the earth creatures was seen being torn apart by a powerful punch. This place looks fun, a robust guy with a plague mask covering his face mentioned. Don't rush Rappa, we have to study the environment to know how to proceed, we don't know anything about these kids and according to the information we got, there are professional heroes around here, said the one who seemed to be the boss, who kept a small gray-haired girl at his side. Why are we doing such a stupid job? Asked the man called Rappa, without looking at his boss. Why? It's an easy question to answer. The money that Mrs. Yaoyorozu was kindly giving us was returned to her. We don't need her money, however, being one of the most powerful families in all of Japan, if that woman owes me a favor, I will collect it someday and I plan to use it in a way that all her influence acts for our benefit, the man commented calmly. While these subjects continued talking, on the other side of the forest one could see how there were more silhouettes, however their appearances were very sinister and striking. The afternoon passed peacefully. Once the boys left the hot springs, they found food that the girls had prepared for them, even the girls from Class B offered to help. However, out of all the dishes, there was only one that was different. Momo Yaoyorozu had prepared exclusively for Izuku, a portion of katsudon, while the rest would eat fried rice with vegetables and some steamed vegetables. "Oh, no. You shouldn't have bothered," the green-haired man commented while the black-haired woman smiled. "I told you, it's no bother," Momo replied, while Uraraka stared at her. This time before she could take the food to Izuku, it was Momo who arrived first offering him the food. "Well, thank you very much," said the green-haired boy as he began to eat. That's when he felt his mother's seasoning, but there was something different, something he still couldn't detect, but that something wasn't something that bothered him. For some reason, that special something made him enjoy the food even more. For her part, Kyoka approached Kirishima and left him the plate, this time being seen by Kaminari, who raised his eyebrow somewhat curiously at this. "Don't expect too much, we all prepared the same thing but each one did it on their own," Kyoka declared, turning her back on the redhead. "Thank you, I'm sure you made a great effort and it will be delicious," mentioned the redhead praising his girlfriend, who only blushed. "You're stupid," the girl complained, feeling very embarrassed. After a pleasant lunch, the time had come to nightfall, and it looked like the pussycats had everything organized for the evening. Class B was within the established limits for the test, while the boys in Class A were now choosing partners for the test. However, "You're coming with me," Aizawa said, holding Kirishima, Mina, Kaminari, Sato and Shiro. "Wait, I want to have fun too, it's not fair," Mina mentioned, clinging to the ground with her nails while Aizawa dragged the 5 of them without problems. "They're still the worst in the class, so we'll use one of the rooms as a classroom to reinforce the topics they've been doing poorly on all year," said the black-haired man with a tired voice. "Guys, come closer, what we're going to do now is select the couples," Tiger commented, holding a box, while Mandalay was standing next to him. One by one they went to take their numbers, while 2 girls shared the thought, "I want to be with Deku Izuku." "Find your partners. The person who shares a number with you will be the one you will work with during the test of courage," Mandalay explained to the boys, watching as Mineta searched for the other number 8 among the girls, without any success. "Izuku, Deku, what number is yours?" Momo and Uraraka asked, making the boy get nervous and step back a little. "Number 3," the green-haired man replied, showing his little piece of paper. "Number 3, you'll be with me then," Kyoka mentioned, approaching the green-haired boy. Momo and Uraraka sighed with regret. Now they saw how Iida was with Kota, Fumikage with Ojiro, Midoriya with Jiro, Todoroki and Bakugo, Tsuyu and Toru, Shoji and Aoyama. Mineta was left without a partner looking for number 8, while Momo and Uraraka were left as a couple. Now the boys advanced through the forest, while those from Class B were strategically hidden. Some heard an explosion and saw a flame in the distance, indicating that Bakugo and Todoroki had been there previously. However, now Izuku and Kyoka were walking calmly, encountering a pair of Class B boys, charred and coughing up smoke. Then, to some people's surprise, the trees began to burst into flames in a blue blaze. "What's going on?" Kyoka asked in shock, as a young man in black clothes and dark hair appeared in front of the green-haired man in the rocker. "The party has just begun," said the guy, still smiling. The crimson color of the flames spread rapidly. Everything that had been green was now covered in a dense cloud of smoke and was being consumed by the scorching heat. Calling for help was not an option, and since it was a fun activity, they didn't see the need to have their cell phones handy. Kyoka and Izuku were currently standing back to back, searching for any strange movement that might indicate they were under attack or if it was just an accident. Jiro wasted no time, kneeling down and bringing his jacks to the ground, listening for any vibrations that would indicate if there were enemies nearby, while Deku was on the alert in case they were trying to ambush them. "I don't detect anyone. I don't like this at all. A fire of this magnitude doesn't appear for nothing. Midoriya, we have to go back and look for the others," declared a worried Kyoka, turning to see her partner. Izuku observed the fire seriously. Todoroki and Bakugo were not so unconscious as to set fire in a wild area. Something else must have caused it. "Diaresis, maybe I could try to put out the flames by recreating All Might's Nebraska Smash. I've never tried it and it could be too complicated for me, not to mention that if I fail there will be several consequences of trying," the flames could go out or intensify if I do it wrong. Diaresis Izuku thought about the pros and cons of acting or not against the fire. Midoriya, damn it. This is no time to be babbling like an idiot. Kyoka shouted, trying to make him react, but since the boy wouldn't come out of his thoughts, she had no choice. Kyoka launched her jacks directly at Midoriya's neck, causing him a rather annoying pain, which managed to make him react. Jiro-san, the boy exclaimed, bewildered, feeling the pain in his neck, while Kyoka withdrew her jacks and the boy rubbed the sore area, looking at her strangely. We can't keep wasting time, we have to get out of here. Now, the purple-haired girl exclaimed, very scared and worried, finding herself in a situation where her partner didn't seem to want to cooperate. The green-haired man returned his gaze to the fire, searching for a way out. They were surrounded, so he made a decision. They had to get out of there as soon as possible. You're right, excuse me, Izuku asked because he was acting selfishly. Wait, what are you doing? Jiro asked somewhat nervously, while the green-haired boy picked her up in his arms, carrying her like a princess. I'll get you out of here. I don't care if I get in trouble, but I won't let anything happen to you. Momo and Kirishima would kill me if anything happened to you, the green-haired man commented while concentrating his power in his legs. He bent his knees and before he could jump, a blue flame blocked their path. Damn! The green-haired man exclaimed when he was interrupted. Kyoka screamed while Izuku instinctively protected her using his body as a shield. The boy hugged her protectively, while the panicked girl clung tightly and fearfully to her friend. Slowly a dark silhouette appeared walking through the flames. That subject crossed the wall of fire as if it were a door and then stopped in front of Deku and Earphone Jack. Izuku turned his face and found himself with the person who was perhaps the cause of all this. You're not who I was hoping to find. This guy mentioned. He was a tall young man with somewhat messy, spiky black hair. His skin was quite strange as he seemed to have burnt skin grafts on his eyes, part of his lower jaw and neck. Said grafts were connected with rivets to the healthy skin. Their clothing could not be clearly seen due to the lighting, but dark tones can be seen in their clothing, which are a trench coat, dark pants, and boots. Who are you and what do you want? Midoriya asked, not taking his eyes off the man. Something inside him was screaming danger and telling him to get out of there right now. If you want to know, then, he extended his hand towards the green-haired boy. Come with me, the one in dark clothes asked in a very calm tone. Izuku didn't take his eyes off him. He was about to put Kyoka down to find out more, but she held on tightly and he felt it. His friend, the toughest of the girls, was scared. Let's go, please, the purple-haired girl begged, closing her eyes while the green-haired boy came back to himself. He found himself in a rather tense situation. The battlefield was a disadvantage, not to mention that the guy looked more experienced. Deku nodded at Jiro's request and got ready again. Hold on, Deku mentioned, gathering a certain amount of one for all power in his legs and then jumping away, leaving that guy behind. He just watched them leave and put his hands in his pocket to continue walking through the burning area with complete calm. Wait, Midoriya! Jiro shouted with a comical expression. Her eyes were blank and she had tears that disappeared due to the speed of the jumps and falls, while the air shook her hair and Jack's Midoriya. The rocker shouted, showing true fear of heights. In the sky you could see how a cloud of gas was dispersing through the forest. Some students who noticed this began to flee to a safe area. However, between the bushes and trees we could see how Ochako, Uraraka and Momo ran in search of their classmates. At that moment the little light of the moon illuminated them, showing that both were wearing gas masks. Are you sure you don't want a ride? Uraraka asked, turning to see Momo, who was running without taking her eyes off the road. No, you'll just waste energy unnecessarily. If we get ambushed we'd be at a disadvantage. For now keep running. If memory serves me right, we're close to the dorms and the camp. Momo replied while Uraraka nodded. Look, Momo, over there, Uraraka pointed out, showing how a girl from Class B was running. The most curious thing about this was that the girl had her fists enlarged and seemed to be carrying something inside. It's Itsuka-chan! Momo exclaimed in surprise as she ran and concentrated on creating a gas mask for the aforementioned. Itsuka at that moment seemed to be doing her best to hold her breath, and from her clumsy steps it seemed that she had been holding it for a while. Itsuka-chan! Uraraka called, making the girl turn around. The young woman with orange hair made a sign for them to follow her. She knew the way back, but Momo stopped her. Wait, put this on, Momo asked while placing the mask on the girl, who finally recovered the wonderful air she longed for. Thank you, the young orange-haired girl responded heavily. She looked too agitated since the adrenaline had her very high. For her part, Momo created a second mask watching as Kendo freed her friend so that she could still survive the gas. Have you seen the others? Momo asked, watching the green-eyed girl shake her head. I have Yui with me. I thought I saw Kanoko and Reiko a few minutes ago. They were already near the exit. I went back to look for Yui and the rest of my companions. I think they are all outside, except for us, clarified the martial artist while Momo and Uraraka looked at each other. Did you see Izuku-kun and Kyoka-chan? Momo asked, letting everyone see her worried sick about both of them. No, but knowing Midoriya they should have already returned, explained the orange-haired girl. Now let's not waste time. Let's go. We have to get out of here, Kendo commented, making the girls nod. That way they all continued running. Meanwhile, a few meters away from that area, we can see how a man with brown hair and a strange mask very similar to that of a plague doctor appeared while he looked annoyed at one of his hands that had a strange rash. You could see that there was blood and he had marks of having been bitten. Damn brat, she bit me, complained the guy, who began to notice a curious change in the atmosphere. There was a strange feeling of hostility everywhere. I have to find Eri before someone else does, complained the man looking at his hand. The rash was beginning to become annoying and causing him quite a bit of anxiety, so he began to scratch it. For their part, Izuku and Kyoka had managed to reach the safe zone, but it was too strange. There was absolutely no one in the area. Let's look for Aizawa-sensei, Izuku mentioned, looking at Kyoka nodding. They both started running. As they understood, he would be giving classes to the kids who had failed, so when they got closer to that place, they ended up receiving a message in their heads. Diaresis, attention gentlemen, we are currently under attack. Some villains have managed to access our camp. We have no idea how many there are. Guys, if you encounter someone unknown, do not attack them, flee and seek shelter. Diaresis. Izuku and Kyoka were surprised. That meant there was more. It was then that they saw Aizawa come out of that special room where he would help those who failed the exams. The man had a specific name floating around in his head, but it faded when he saw a couple of his students in the area. What are you doing here? The black-haired man asked sternly, looking at Izuku and Kyoka. Sensei, in the forest we were attacked by a man who can manipulate fire, said the green-haired man worriedly. Come into the living room. Vlad is there with some of his classmates. I should go help, declared the black-haired man seriously. Sensei, can I help? I need to make sure Momo is okay. The green-haired man commented, looking at Aizawa. The man was about to refuse, but then a strange silhouette came out of nowhere and attacked the hero and his students, but they dodged it, looking at the strange silhouette fall to the ground. The creature ended up on the floor and turned around staring at them, when Aizawa became alert and focused on a couple of people who had made an appearance. So you know the girl, how about you tell us where our target is and we leave you alone, commented a blonde man wearing a black beak-shaped mask. He dressed elegantly, wearing a long-sleeved green shirt and black pants. Diaresis Momo, Diaresis Izuku, Aizawa and Kyoka thought, seeing this strange group that had appeared before them. Back with Momo and Uraraka, we can see how both of them ran, hoping to get out of the forest, while Kendo and Kodai followed them closely. Behind them a thick cloud of gas was on their heels. Fortunately for the girls, each one was wearing their gas masks. The group slowly approached the exit, but it was then that Kodai stopped suddenly, drawing the attention of her friends and companions. Yui, what are you doing? We have to get out of here. There are villains and we can't afford to run into any of them, Kendo commented, looking at her friend with concern. However, the brunette pointed at something that was walking awkwardly. Over there. I can't really make it out, but I thought I saw someone, Yui replied, looking at the girls while pointing in the direction where she saw movement. It could be a trap. We have to return to camp, Uraraka commented, very distrustful of her surroundings. But what if she isn't? Momo asked, looking at the brunette. We're supposed to be studying to be heroines. We can't turn our backs on her. If you want to go out, no problem, I'll go, said the brunette, who was acting a little irresponsible this time. Wait, Momo, Kendo called worriedly. Go ahead, I'll stay with her, we'll go back together, Yui mentioned, surprising Kendo. Having seen that silhouette, she felt responsible for helping her. "Yui, are you too?" the orange-haired girl asked worriedly when she saw the two black-haired girls running towards the silhouette. When they arrived, they both got a huge surprise. It was a little girl with white hair. She was holding her throat and was crying. Her red eyes expressed pure despair at not being able to breathe properly, while she had blood in her mouth. This scared them because they did not expect the gas to be so harmful as to make her bleed from the mouth to that point. Uraraka and Kendo saw them walk away and had no choice but to run after them. They weren't going to leave them alone, since their strong suit wasn't exactly hand-to-hand combat. "Hey, I'm here, don't lose your cool and breathe slowly," Momo asked, placing a mask on the little girl. "She's a girl," Uraraka mentioned in shock. "Good thing they didn't leave her behind." "I can't, no, I can't," the little girl mentioned, beginning to lose consciousness. Her vision began to blur, until Momo secured the mask. This allowed the girl to breathe desperately. Shish, calm down, breathe slowly and calmly, nothing is happening," Momo explained, making the girl follow her instructions and normalize her breathing. Slowly her vision improved as she was better oxygenated. However, unfortunately for the girl was scared when she saw them wearing those terrifying masks. No, let me go," the girl begged, while Momo did her best to calm her down. Yui realized a few things. "Wow, calm down little one, we are not the bad ones, we just want to help you," Kendo said, wanting to calm the girl down. "Momo, we have to get her out of here, look at her arms and legs," Kodai asked. So the former Yaoyorozu looked down and noticed that the girl had bandages covering her arms and legs, and that her clothes were just a worn-out nightgown in terrible condition. "What's your name?" Momo asked. The little girl calmed down a bit, as it meant they weren't with that man. "Were you camping in the area? Are you coming with someone?" Momo asked, but then a cut appeared on Momo's cheek, and she only felt the blood trickle down. "That face of yours is the best. You look so beautiful. Would you like to be my friend?" asked a young blonde woman wearing a school uniform consisting of a beige sweater, a navy blue skirt, blue socks that reached below the knee, brown school shoes, and she also seemed to have some kind of backpack on her back. Momo, upon seeing the stranger, quickly hugged the girl protectively, while Kodai looked on worriedly. She wasn't an attacking type of hero, so the situation was stacked against them, while Uraraka and Kendo raised their guard to defend the girls. Unknown location. We can see how a small silhouette looked in complete shock as the forest was on fire. His legs trembled and he was completely motionless. It was then that a huge shadow covered him from head to toe. This scared him because no one should know that place. "This is a pretty cool place, don't you think?" asked the enormous silhouette standing in front of the little boy, a few tears welling up in his eyes. "That cap is too good for a kid, trade it for this silly toy mask," mentioned the enormous silhouette. In the moonlight he could be seen with a hood covering his body, while his face was covered by a white mask with several holes. The guy removed his mask and dropped it, and it was then that the boy panicked. That smile, that damn thing, told him he wasn't going to make it out alive. "Mom, Dad," the young man whispered when he recognized the man standing in front of him. "You know, without your cap you look pretty familiar to me," the huge guy mentioned. Who came a little closer to stare at the little guy in front of him. "I guess you just look like someone I already killed," the guy declared, downplaying it. "Anyway, that's enough talk. It's time to work," the man mentioned, clenching his fist. As his arm was covered in muscle tissue and hit the little guy's stomach, the impact was so powerful that the boy's eyes rolled back in his head while he spit out some saliva in the process. The boy ended up on the ground and seemed unable to move, while the huge man calmly approached his victim. "You weren't on the list, but I can kill you for more pleasure," the subject said while his arm was covered with muscle tissue again. Then a powerful punch made the huge subject retreat. "That blow hurt me," the subject commented looking at his attacker. "I'm not one to get involved in other people's fights, but hitting someone who isn't conscious is dishonorable," a masked man with long brown hair commented sternly. He was muscular and his clothes consisted of a tight-fitting white short-sleeved shirt, black pants and military boots, while his hands and forearms were covered by metal plates. "This will be fun, more bugs to squash, come here buddy, let's have fun," mentioned the huge guy who began to cover his body with a muscle mass destroying the layer that covered him. leaving him looking like a blonde man with a metallic eye. The two men lunged at each other and clashed fists, sending a gust of air up to kick up dust and rocks. "I'll tear you to pieces," said the blonde with a crazy smile. "You talk too much," the masked man replied sternly. Everything was blurry. I heard very altered and somewhat distorted voices. I could barely understand what they were saying. My head was spinning. I was cold and I felt the air currents running through my body. It didn't help. "He's losing a lot of blood. His signs are going down. We need to give him." The patient felt dazed and very confused. His breathing was labored and he was assisted by an oxygen mask, but it couldn't do much thanks to the internal injuries. His eyes opened with great difficulty. He saw blurry silhouettes, but when he focused on the ceiling he only saw annoying white lights that gave him a terrible headache. "Administer what?" the man asked, confused, when he felt a prick in his right arm. He reacted to the injection. "He seems to be regaining consciousness," one of the orderlies warned. Upon hearing this, one of the figures accompanying him quickly approached. "Sir, do you remember what happened?" the man asked worriedly, but before he could answer a voice caught the patient's attention, who turned his face and could barely make out a head of black hair. "Kaoru Aizawa whispered, confusing the person in front of him. "Dad, can you hear me?" the silhouette asked in a feminine voice. It belonged to a young woman with black hair who was trying to keep up with the moving stretcher. "Miss, the patient's ribs are broken and his lungs have been punctured. Making him talk is not a good idea. He will only waste his energy unnecessarily. Sir, please don't talk and save your energy. We are taking him to the emergency room for treatment," one of the doctors explained, as they got closer and closer to the area. "Momo," the man insisted weakly, while the image of the girl came to his head. "Shush, calm down, Dad. I'm here, I'm not going anywhere," the young woman responded desperately to the adult's call. "Momo, cough, 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 daughter," the man called, while in his mind the image of the girl appeared with an expression of fear, sadness and despair. The man raised his hand with great difficulty and the young woman took it in hers. "Here I am," the young woman said, feeling useless. After all, it was her fault that the black-haired man was in that state. "You'll be okay, Dad. You'll be okay. There are so many things I need to know. Please, just hold on. Don't leave me now," Momo begged, very worried, but then the man began to move strangely. "Dad. Sensei. Aizawa-sensei," the girl called when she saw that Aizawa was getting worse. It was then that they stopped her after arriving at the emergency room. "We can't waste any more time. It's an attack. We have to proceed now," warned one of the doctors, watching as the patient began to convulse. No, Dad. No, Dad," the young woman screamed in despair, tears of helplessness streaming down her cheeks as the doctor denied her access, standing between her and the emergency room. "Miss, please calm down. We will do everything possible to save him. Trust us, recovery girl is on her way. When we manage to stabilize him and give him enough rest, everything will be in your hands, the heroine, to support your father's recovery. For now just stay calm," explained one of the doctors, while Mandalay appeared behind Momo and hugged her. "Everything will be okay, darling. Your father is the most stubborn and strong man I know. Now that you know the truth, he won't give up. You can trust me," said the woman with tears in her eyes while comforting Momo with a hug. "Quickly, we have to treat him. We're losing him," said one of those present, noticing how all the doctors were ready to proceed. It was then that everything went completely dark for the patient. Hours ago, a powerful dry blow resonated throughout the forest, followed by the rumble of an impact that ended up scaring away the animals that had hidden in their burrows seeking shelter. Then a last impact was heard loudly, looking like two enormous fists impacted the face of their opponent, who received the impact without fear. "You're not doing so bad for a damn weakling. It's been years since I've had this much fun," mentioned an excited blonde whose teeth were stained red and who was doing his best to turn his face and look in the direction of his opponent. On the other side we can see how that masked man, who seemed to have a kind of beak, his body did not feel pain, but his voice showed a lot of emotion. This was a fight between men without any kind of restrictions. "This is how fights should be, to the death and without interruptions. I plan to shatter you, so don't break too quickly," declared the masked man mockingly. It seemed both rivals were enjoying the encounter since neither seemed to have any intention of giving in. "That's if I don't tear you apart first," exclaimed the villain as his body turned into a huge, pink, and deformed muscular mass that began to grow bigger and bigger. Taking advantage of this, he grabbed the masked man by the face with his right hand and started running, pushing his enemy's body against the mountain behind him. He began to rub his face against the rocks, trying to cause as much damage as possible. This ended up breaking the lower part of his mask in the process. I hate ending things so quickly, but to be honest, I wish I could see you bleed, exclaimed the pink muscular man in ecstasy, when a powerful punch to his forearm made his body vibrate and forced him to let go of the masked man. What the hell? The blonde asked, feeling a strange tingling in his arm. It wasn't bad at all, man. The masked man put his hand to his left shoulder and began to shake his head from side to side. But I thought this fight would be bare knuckle, complained the guy with metal in his hands, taking a fighting stance. I like to play with my food, the blonde claimed mockingly, shaking his arm, managing to ward off the momentary numbness, while he opened and closed his hand, making sure everything was okay, but then a punch took him by surprise. No time to rest, the masked man shouted, initiating a sequence of punches that slowly pushed him backward. It didn't matter how much he shielded himself with his arms, he was still pushed back, to the point where his defense began to break. Diaresis, what the heck is going on? I've never been hurt like this before. My body is supposed to be able to withstand the impact of a moving vehicle, and this guy Diaresis muscular said, his smile gone, and he could only feel a strange tickling that turned into tingling, then into discomfort, and little by little into pain. At that moment the blonde villain's body began to shake, while his muscles began to lose size and thickness. This ended up taking him by surprise. What's wrong? Was that all you had? It seems to me that you're just one of those guys who likes the sound of his voice. I on the other hand like the sound of my fists hitting you, commented the masked man, who hits his opponent at an impressive speed, managing to make that pink mass that the Cyclops called muscle retreat. The way in which I'm going to crush that pride of yours, I'm going to enjoy it, like you can't imagine, sentenced the masked man, while the blonde doubled over completely and fell to the ground coughing some blood. No, this can't be happening, Muscular said with his gaze focused on the ground while looking at his own blood on the ground. What's wrong, old man? Can't you take it anymore? Come on, just get fat one more time and we can continue our fight. Come on, do it, do it, do it, do it, the masked man demanded, pressing Muscular. I'll kill you, the man shouted as he covered himself once again with a rather swollen mantle of his own muscle mass, allowing him to withstand the brunt of enemy attacks. You're a good fatso, come here, exclaimed the excited masked man, when a punch hit his face, making him crash against a mountain. The games are over, declared the blonde, walking towards the masked man, who stood up and launched an attack, starting a rain of punches which left some impact marks that the blonde couldn't regenerate so quickly. His fists are moving too fast, I can't catch him, I'll have to eliminate him before I run out of resistance, Muscular thought, choosing to let himself be hit and resist, while he extended his hands and opened his palms. I will crush your head like you were an insect, Muscular shouted, ready to smash the masked man's skull. When his hands were about to hit his skull, the masked man raised his arms and the attack hit his forearms. That was close, the masked man mocked a little. Now it's my turn, the guy shouted, throwing himself at the pink muscle man. Meanwhile, in another area we can see how Aizawa, Izuku and Kyoko were facing a group of strangers who had come out of nowhere, and there was also that villain who had appeared to attack the Eraser hero. And who are you? The man with the blue flames calmly asked, since the report they had received hadn't mentioned a group like this in the area. Sorry, how rude of me, my name is Toya Setsuno, official member of Shihasaikai, and I tell you this with all the confidence in the world since I do not intend to let you leave alive, mentioned that blonde with a beak-shaped mask. At that moment a blue flame was launched against the blonde. This took Aizawa and his students by surprise. Now their attention was completely focused on the subject with the flame quirk, who maintained a serious expression and focused on the newcomers. I don't like you interfering with my work, but I can make an exception and kill you first and then them, declared the subject with the burns on his body while focusing his gaze on his victims. Midoriya, Jiro, I want you both out of this, find the pussycats so they can take you to a safe place, Eraser ordered, reaching for one of his saddlebags, but he never found what he was looking for. But they both said, worried about their sensei's safety. Sensei, there are too many of you alone, We can't just leave you here, Izuku mentioned, when a voice broke into their conversation. Leave? So soon? But the party's just getting started, Toya declared, looking completely intact while the scarred man ceased the fire attack, revealing that those men were completely safe under a protective barrier, while the Yakuza had a small bottle in his possession. When? Eraser asked, confused, seeing that the guy had what he was looking for. You should take good care of your belongings, Eraserhead. By the way, Mrs. Yaoyorozu warned us about you. She told us something about not hurting you and that she loves you, the blonde declared. Oops, I said too much. Let's just say she just sends you her regards, the blonde mocked, making the black-haired man and his students open their eyes wide. Then a more powerful flare made an appearance. No matter what you do, nothing will be able to pass my barrier, a male voice said from behind the flame. When it ceased, a tall, blonde man with spiky hair could be seen, who was wearing somewhat traditional black clothes, who seemed to be the one responsible for the barriers. Good job, Tengai-san, Toya mentioned, grateful to his partner. The fire may not do anything to them, but the heat, it must feel like hell in the dome, said the man with the scars, noticing how the Yakuzas were beginning to sweat a little at the intensity of the temperature. It was then that from the barrier, a man covered in glass appeared and attacked the man with blue flames, taking him out of the battlefield. Well, with that out of the way, let's get back to what we were doing. Where's the girl? Toya asked, while Eraser began to feel his anger rising more and more. That wretch, Eraser thought as the bandages on his neck began to lift and his eyes turned completely red. Momo's mother, Kyoka mentioned in shock, turning to look at Izuku. Are you still here? I told you to leave, Aizawa ordered, planning to finish off all these guys. Now there was a reason to do it. But sensei, the green-haired boy exclaimed worriedly. Midoriya, I thought I was very clear, but if you insist on being useful, go with Mandalay and the Pussycats. I want you to tell everyone that they are authorized to use their quirks to defend themselves. Also, I want you to look for Momo. I will try to give them as much time as possible, Eraser explained, making Izuku and Kyoka look worried about the decision. Fine, they both responded, turning around to start running. Then a shadow came out from behind the Yakuzas with the intention of hunting down the boys. Your fight is with me, Aizawa sentenced, trying to intercept the hunter, but a barrier prevented him from following them. Damn it, Eraserhead complained at not being able to follow Midoriya and Jiro. Izuku and Kyoka were now running back to the Pussycats' camp, but then the rocker stopped. Jiro, the green-haired boy asked, confused, while the purple-haired girl looked around for whatever had been bothering her. Food. A strange scream was heard that forced Kyoka to focus on the source of the voice. Then she could see the face of a very thin, medium-sized man with a white cloth covering his head, who was launching himself in her direction with his mouth open, but then a punch threw him several meters away. She saw him, those spiky red hair and that burly back. Get away from her, Kirishima bellowed, making the purple-haired girl blush. Her boyfriend was there. He appeared to save her. Eiji, Kyoka murmured, while the redhead looked over her shoulder wanting to make sure she was okay. Eiji looked so cool that it made her heart beat. Kirishima-kun, the green-haired boy exclaimed, feeling a great relief at seeing his friend present. Are you okay? The redhead asked, focusing on his girlfriend, who nodded at his words. Food. Eat. Eat. The strange guy shouted again, when Kirishima stiffened his body completely and threw another punch at that strange guy, who grabbed his fist and began to chew it, causing Kirishima some pain. Shit, he's chewing my fist, Kirishima exclaimed, unable to move in shock. Smaaaaaash, Izuku shouted, slamming his fist into the strange man's body, managing to push him away from his friend, who was looking at his very damaged hand. Eijiro, are you okay? Kyoka asked worriedly when she saw that her boyfriend was hurt. I'm more worried about what that guy can do to you, he said with a grimace of pain while looking at his trembling hand, which returned to normal with bite marks and some blood visible. We have to continue. Aizawa-sensei told me that I must inform Mandalay about the permission to use our quirk to defend ourselves, Izuku explained, but then. Food, the man shouted, standing up once more as he opened his jaws and launched an attack. In a different area we can see how sparks sprang up from Momo's constant blocks using her shield, However, it was not enough to contain the lunatic who had appeared. Right now the girl had several cuts on her arms and legs. "My first time with friends. This is so exciting," the girl said. She was blonde and looked a bit disheveled in her photo. Her hair was arranged in two buns with a few unruly strands escaping from the hairstyle. She seemed to be wearing some kind of school uniform. Momo looked over her shoulder and saw Kodai taking care of Uraraka and the little girl, while Kendo acted as the first defense for her friend. It must be said that the gravity girl was the first easy victim by taking this stranger lightly. "This crazy woman, she's going to finish us off," Uraraka complained while gritting her teeth. The blonde was so agile that she was unable to apply any submission hold. "My name is Toga. Himiko Toga, and all of you are cute," the girl commented with a smile under her gas mask. "Wow, I've never seen such big breasts before," the blonde mentioned while Momo took a step back and covered her chest. "Momo, we need a plan to escape. I can buy you time, but you need to create something to generate a distraction," Kendo mentioned, willing to sacrifice herself for the team. "We won't be able to beat her. It seems she's on a very different level than us," Itsuka declared, who had some wounds on her arms and hands. "Itsuka-chan, go back to camp," Momo asked, firmly taking the handle of her shield. "I will buy you time. I don't have the necessary limpids to create more things. After so many masks my reserves are at minimum. Don't worry, I'll be fine. Now go," the black-haired girl mentioned while she remained attentive to any movement on the part of the girl. "Are you crazy? He's going to kill you," the orange-haired woman reproached her for such a stupid and risky decision, when the young blonde lowered her mask, revealing a disturbing smile. "Just do it," Momo shouted, watching as her enemy jumped in her direction, then received her with a shield blow, making her fall to the ground and roll a little. However, she slowly got up as if nothing had happened. She only had the mark of the blow on her cheek. "Okay, I'll do my best to come back and bring support. Please don't die," Kendo mentioned, which made her fist grow. Then she lifted the girl in one hand while with the other she lifted Yui and Uraraka. "That wasn't nice at all, but don't worry, I'm not mad at my best friend. I couldn't, and just for that I'll express all my love and affection by stabbing you repeatedly in the abdomen so you can show me your beautiful face," the young woman mentioned with a deranged smile, while Momo gripped her shield more firmly. She's crazy and wouldn't give her enough time to create a blunt weapon to fight with. She would have to rely on the shield until Itsuka returned with reinforcements. "Diaresis, I hope they make it safely, Izuku-kun. I'll try my best to be as brave as you, Diaresis," Momo thought with determination, while the image of the green-haired boy appeared in her mind. If he could make suicidal decisions that worked perfectly, she would do her best to do the same and return home. "You know, I always thought girls' nights were for talking about fun topics, but maybe you've lost the practice, Momo-chan," Toga said, smiling while holding her favorite knife with both hands, ready to resume the fight. "How do you know my name?" the brunette asked seriously. "I don't want to say it, it makes me so sad," the girl replied, putting her hands to her cheeks. "Diaresis Adrenaline, if you're there, don't fail me now, Diaresis," the girl asked, starting to run, taking advantage of the blonde's distraction, with the intention of hitting her again with the shield. However, Momo left as the blonde stepped aside. It's my turn," Toga said, looking at the blood gushing out, while Momo's clothes turned red from the cut on her back. "Damn it!" the black-haired girl screamed, falling to her knees. Himiko, seeing that expression of pain, became excited and blushed. You're so cute, Momo-chan, I'll make you look even cuter," the girl said as she approached, only to receive another blow to the head from Momo's shield, while the former Yaoyorozu stood up on shaky legs, looking quite affected. "That's not done," said the girl, changing her personality to one that showed annoyance and displeasure. "I'm not going to give in, not now, so come and fight, you crazy bitch," Momo said, noticing the girl's new seriousness. It seemed that her comments were not very much to her liking. Back with Aizawa, we can see him somewhat exhausted and a little damaged. Right now Eraserhead was protecting his chest with one hand, while a grimace of annoyance appeared on his face. This was due to the return of the man with the crystal quirk after the escape of the fireman, and it was his constant attacks that left the Eraser hero in such a deplorable state. "Let's not make this more difficult, Eraser. Just tell us where the girl is. Hojo's crystals are quite hard and can break bones without any problem," commented the talkative blonde. After all, they had the advantage. "Eraser!" a voice shouted behind him, and a strange, red, viscous layer was thrown over the enemies, but the protective barrier returned. Vlad the black-haired man whispered when he saw the blood hero at his side with his hand extended, while that viscous layer returned to the inside of his hand. A barrier. The man in the red suit said in surprise, looking at the newcomers. The boys? Aizawa asked, concerned about his students. I sent them towards the dorms with the pussycats, the white-haired man explained, taking a weight off the eraser hero's shoulders. What are we dealing with? Vlad asked without taking his eyes off them. Mercenaries under contract, apparently, Aizawa replied, trying to get back on his feet. Who's the target? You. The blood hero asked. They've talked too much, the glass man exclaimed desperately, covering his entire body to launch an attack. Vlad, seeing this, was ready to answer, so he covered his hand with a large amount of blood that hardened quickly while he shaped it into a large fist. His intentions were clear, but when he tried to land his blow, the barrier returned, standing between him and Hojo. A barrier? Vlad asked in dismay, which was just long enough for him to receive a punch from the glass man, causing him to hunch over in pain. Vlad! Aizawa exclaimed upon seeing his partner receive that impact. It seems like they hire anyone at UA now. I was expecting more than a couple of professionals, but what can you do? The blonde mentioned, shaking his head, having practically the numerical advantage. Diaresis with this state he couldn't do much, but that talker hasn't moved. It seems that his gift is limited to stealing things from a distance, while the barriers are the problem, then. I have him. Diaresis the man thought while activating his quirk. Again. The blonde asked mockingly. Vlad, I'm targeting the one with the barriers? Aizawa shouted, making the mercenaries open their eyes in surprise. So Vlad smiled and, manipulating his blood again, made his hand cover himself with his blood again and solidify in the shape of a fist bigger than the previous one, and then hit the face of the glass man, who for some reason didn't have his head completely covered. Several pieces of glass flew through the air, while those two remained in place, completely motionless because they had not expected to get an opportunity like this. It seems that you are simply the support ones, or am I wrong? Asked Aizawa, who took his tactical knife from his waist, while keeping his other hand on his chest. He was very limited, but he had to take advantage of the opportunity to immobilize them. Here, do something! Toya exclaimed, turning to look at his partner, who was trying to concentrate on returning the barrier, but it was impossible. I can't do it while he keeps his gaze on me. You'll have to do something to distract him, make him focus on you, that way you can return the protective barriers, Tengai said, when Hojo ended up falling heavily on his back, while Vlad smiled and approached those two idiots. Do you have a plan, Eraser? The blood hero asked, glancing at his companion. Yes, you with the barriers and I with the talkative idiot, Aizawa stated as both heroes calmly approached their objectives. On Izuku's side, we can see how they were trying to handle the strange guy who seemed to want to eat them like a simple meat dish. However, they were not the only ones who were having problems, since Todoroki and Bakugo were dealing with a strange guy who seemed to be wearing a straitjacket that even covered his head, his strange mouth being the only thing that was free. What stupid quirk is this? Bakugo questioned, his hands generating enough fuel to create a pretty good explosion. Stop, Bakugo, we can't use our quirks, it's best to return to the safe zone, Todoroki said, wanting to be the voice of reason, when in a scream, the guy's teeth lengthened grotesquely and ended up creating some cuts on both students. Fucking bastard, I'm not going to stay here and wait to be turned into a skewer, the blonde shouted, launching himself into the attack, but at that moment, Bakugo and Todoroki's feet lost some strength. I didn't expect to find people from another group around here. The best thing we can do is get rid of the competition. Don't you think so, Rikia? Asked a long-haired man, wearing the same Plague Doctor-themed mask design while carrying a bottle of liquor. It will be simple, mentioned a huge muscular guy, who approached the guy with the strange teeth, who was trying to force the newcomers back by attacking them with the growth of his teeth, but the huge guy tore them apart with simple punches. Damn, more extras, Bakugo complained, trying to regain strength in his legs, which couldn't support him. This is getting to us, if we don't leave now, Todoroki thought, when the blonde and Endeavor's son disappeared, turning into a small pair of blue spheres. Wow, I didn't expect to get the most outstanding pair of UA, mentioned a guy with a hat, who picked up both spheres and then saw how one of his companions was having problems with a couple of strangers. My work is done, good luck comrade, commented the guy with the hat, turning his back on the one who was fighting for his life. Now with Bakugo and Todoroki captured, things were only about to get worse. Aizawa and Vlad managed to defeat and subdue the mercenaries. Midoriya and his group continued trying to stop their attacker, while Momo and Toga continued to duel, noticing how the black-haired girl blocked the blonde's attacks. Both of them ran towards each other. Momo managed to hit the blonde, making her fall, while she took a couple of steps back and looked down, her hands trembling as she saw how the blonde had managed to stick the knife in her abdomen. "Aizuku, bu, forgive me," the girl whispered, as she fell to the ground. The situation was beginning to spiral out of control. The wild pussy cats found themselves tied up as they watched one of their own at the mercy of the men in front of her. The victim in question was Pixie Bob, who was lying unconscious on the ground, his head crushed by what appeared to be the villain's equipment. "Wretches, that woman just started to worry about getting married," Tiger exclaimed in a rather deep and annoyed voice, while his feline gloves emerged his claws. "I can't allow you to just stand there, mocking without a hint of consideration," exclaimed the enormous tiger, gritting his teeth. "A hero looking for a normal life. Don't make me laugh," the scaly-skinned man replied, ready to attack. "Tiger, I've already given instructions. Let's leave the boys in Ragdoll's hands. Delegates, guide your classmates out of the conflict zone. Both of you are in charge of your respective classes. I'll pass the message to the rest of those who haven't returned yet. Now leave, you're in charge," Mandalay said, looking at Iida and Kendo, who not long ago appeared with Uraraka, Kodai and the little girl. "Mandalay, I can't, I have to go back. Momo is still in the forest. I can't leave her alone," said the orange-haired girl, ready to go back for the black-haired girl. The woman could no longer waste time. It was a huge risk to let a student wander alone through the forest given the situation they were facing. "I'll go with her, I'll take care of protecting her," said a boy with gray hair and sharp teeth. Tetsu, the orange-haired girl, mentioned when she saw her partner willing to give her support. So Mandalay nodded. They couldn't waste any more time. "Fine, follow me," Kendo ordered, ready to return for her friend. When they stopped her, looking down, she could see the little girl clinging to her. "Calm down, I'll go for the girl who rescued you. For now stay with Kodai and Uraraka, they will take care of you," Kendo said kindly, while the little silver-haired girl's grip was released and she saw Kendo run into the forest, while the heroes. In this way, both of them began their journey towards Momo's location, which Kendo remembered was not very far away. For their part, Izuku and Kirishima, completely fed up with their pursuer, both turned around and faced him while protecting Kyoka. "Food!" the strange man shouted insistently, lunging at them both, when something grabbed him by the feet and knocked him to the ground. The green-haired man and the red-haired man were surprised, only to see how the bandage was cut and something began to pull him. This was Sato and Siro, who had teamed up to catch up with them and managed to subdue the annoying mercenary. "Well done, Sato, now send him away," Mina said, while Sato, driven by the power of sugar, began to pull Siro's adhesive tape and then began to spin the enemy in the air and then throw him through the air. "Guys!" Izuku exclaimed, happy to see them, as they approached. "Good thing we arrived on time, they seem to be having a lot of trouble," Siro commented with one of his typical smiles. "That guy was a pain," Kyoka complained with her arms crossed. "If it hadn't been under my direction, you would surely be dead already," Monoma exclaimed. "I'm sure now Class A must feel like fools knowing that a plan from a member of Class B worked better than they had expected. Now you owe me your lives, ha ha ha." The blonde laughed while everyone ignored him. "Guys, let's not waste time, we must go to the wild Wilf Pussycats to give the notice that we are allowed to use our quirks to defend ourselves," said the green-haired boy, looking at his companions, who set off leaving Monoma behind, but Siro's tape wrapped around his body and pulled him to prevent them from hurting him. For his part, Aizawa was being carried on Vlad's back, while Eraserhead's bandages were surrounding the bodies of the unconscious mercenaries. "I can walk on my own, you know that?" the black-haired man asked, as the blood hero continued walking. "I know, but if I let you go on your own you're going to hurt yourself more than you already are. Don't worry, we'll soon get to camp. The Pussycats must have everything under control and the boys should already be in a safe place. I trust that," Vlad mentioned calmly. "Momo, if something were to happen to you, I haven't been able to do anything for you since I found out about our ties," the man thought, too frustrated. Back with the Pussycats, we can see how Mandalay and Tiger were having difficulties controlling the pair of villains. Right now we can see how the self-proclaimed Magna was dodging each of the attacks of the powerful Tiger, demonstrating surprising agility and reaction time. Kenji Hekishi, alias Magna, 9 counts of robbery, 3 murders and 29 attempted murders, Tiger exclaimed, throwing an uppercut, which was stopped without much trouble. Wow, I didn't expect to be so famous, he replied calmly, to distance himself from the villain with fleshy lips. Tiger, something's wrong, I'm not getting a response from Ragdoll, Mandalay said, putting a hand on her helmet as she watched the male member of the Pussycats in shock, while Magna smiled. Why would that be? The villain asked with a mocking smile. At that moment we can see how Izuku's group was close to the area where the Pussycats were fighting, when Kyoka managed to spot Kendo and Tetsu entering the forest. Itsuka? Kyoka asked when she saw them running. I can't stop, Momo is in trouble. The orange-haired girl mentioned, making Midoriya open his eyes. He quickly took Kendo in his arms without waiting for permission or anything like that. Am I Midoriya? What are you doing? The orange-haired girl questioned as she was carried in her arms like a princess. Hey! Tetsu complained upon seeing the liberties Izuku was taking. Kirishima, tell Mandalay that Aizawa-sensei granted permission to defend ourselves with our quirks. Kendo-san, tell me where Momo is. The green-haired man asked, beginning to release those green rays that everyone knew perfectly. Let's go, Kirishima ordered, while Kendo pointed the way. Then Izuku made a jump so powerful that it made him rise several meters into the sky. Midori ya! Kendo shouted, clinging to the green-haired boy due to Izuku's sudden actions and the fear of falling from those heights. The green-haired man had a serious look. He had promised that he would always protect Momo, and knowing that she was in danger was something he was not going to allow. How far is it? Izuku asked as they began to fall. I don't know, I wouldn't know, about. Maybe 2 kilometers. Kendo screamed terrified, while Midoriya managed to fall on a tree branch and ended up using it to propel himself again. While Kendo only felt the continuous ups and downs throughout the entire journey, she just closed her eyes waiting for it all to end. I saw her, Izuku exclaimed, watching as Momo crashed her shield against that girl, while they took distance, to then run against each other again, with Momo managing to hit Toga hard while knocking her down, to then take a couple of steps back and look down. Toga's knife was stuck in her stomach. When she looked up she saw Izuku and Kendo make an appearance. Izuku, be you. Forgive me, the girl whispered, as she fell to the ground, while the green-haired boy had a look of shock. Momo-chan, she shouted, getting out of her friend's arms, while the green-haired boy had a lost look and his mind went completely blank. The only thing that repeated in his head was the image of the black-haired girl falling to the ground. That really hurt me, Toga complained, getting back up. It was then that she saw the green-haired boy's lost look. There was pain and a lot of desperation on his face, which made her blush deeply. Momo! The green-haired man shouted as strange, completely uncontrolled black structures emerged from his body. He's so cute, Toga mentioned while a smile appeared on her face upon seeing Izuku's desperation, while Kendo looked at the green-haired boy with great surprise and some fear. Mido. Ria? The girl asked. It was then that Izuku focused his lost gaze on Toga and began walking in her direction. More, I want to see more, Toga mentioned while taking a strange hose that was connected to the device on her back. It had a tip similar to that of a needle, while with her free hand she took another of her knives. Izuku began to walk in her direction, while those strange tentacles shook violently. Then Toga jumped ready to stab him, but these same black tentacles held her by the neck, wrists and ankles. Wow! Does anyone like to play rough? The girl asked with a smile, as the tentacles slowly pulled her closer. I'm going to rip your stomach out through your mouth, Izuku declared, beginning to concentrate 100% of One for All on his right arm, without even caring about the consequences that this could bring to his body. I expected nothing less for my first time, the blonde said excitedly, while the pressure of One for All itself began to tear the entire right side of Izuku's clothes. Midoriya, stop, you're going to kill her, Kendo shouted when he saw that Izuku wasn't going to back down. One for All, the green-haired man whispered. Midoriya! Kendo screamed in terror, because once the green-haired man crossed the line there would be no turning back. 100%, Midoriya whispered. Detroit smash! The green-haired man sentenced, hitting Toga's stomach, making her open her eyes and wince in pain. However, the impact was less than expected. "I thought you had already learned your lesson, but it seems I was wrong," a rather familiar voice questioned, while Toga fell to the ground clutching her abdomen. Aizawa-sensei Kendo said when he saw the black-haired man leaning on Vlad King, while Izuku seemed to react to Aizawa's presence. The man approached Kendo while Vlad went to Midoriya to make sure the villain was incapacitated. "How bad is it?" the black-haired man asked, feeling a lot of pain. It was quite possible his ribs were broken. "I don't know, but she's losing a lot of blood," Kendo replied as they turned Momo over and looked at the wound. Aizawa removed the bandages from his neck and began to wrap them around Momo's abdomen. "Midoriya, you and I will have a pending talk. Now I want you to carry Momo very carefully and we return to the Pussycat's base. She needs to be treated immediately. Kendo-san, you must help me walk. Vlad is the one who is taking care of the defeated villains," Aizawa explained, giving instructions to the boys. With those words, Izuku approached Momo to carefully take her, while the black-haired man was helped by Kendo to continue on his way. "Okay, go ahead, I just have to go get the girl," Vlad mentioned when a blue flame blocked his path. "Him again," Aizawa mentioned upon seeing that guy present. "I'll take care of it, don't worry," said the man with the burns, taking the girl and putting her on his shoulder while the blue flame blocked their way. "We can't do anything, let's go back," Eraser ordered when he saw that they had lost the villain. Back with Mandalay and Tiger, we can see how they were receiving assistance from Kirishima and Sato, since Aizawa's instructions had been brought to the heroines. "It's time to end this," Tiger declared, ready to throw himself at Magna and finish him off, but Spinner's enormous sword cut him off. "Of course, and the way to end it is by fulfilling Stain's dreams by finishing off all the false heroes in the world," the reptilian subject declared, when his sword ended up breaking due to a combination carried out by Kirishima and Sato, where the muscular man threw him through the air and the redhead, hardening his body, fell on him with all the weight he could. "They're lost," the redhead declared, maintaining his hardened form, while rubbing his arms together, creating a pair of sparks. At that moment, a silhouette was seen walking. He had a top hat, a mask covering his face, and an orange outfit. "It seems you have problems, Magna, Spinner," said the subject calmly, "but don't worry, it's time to leave, the job is done," mentioned the subject of the hat showing that pair of spheres. "What about the rest?" Magna asked, looking over his shoulder at his companion. "Dabi already found Toga, twice is on his way to the extraction point. Unfortunately we lost Moonfish in a 2-on-1 fight in Mustard. I could see how a guy disintegrated him, which explains why the poisonous gas has stopped spreading through the forest. It seems we're not the only ones here. Some masked men took care of them," declared the man with the hat playing with the small blue spheres. "What about Muscular?" Spinner asked, looking at the man in the hat. "You know him, he does what he wants. The last thing I heard was that he was heading towards those mountains," he said, sowing much anguish in Mandalay. "Muscular?" she asked, remembering the man who murdered her nephew's parents. Meanwhile, in the mountains, we can see how little Kota began to react. He grimaced in pain as he clutched his stomach, but the sound of a powerful blow caught his attention, and it was then that his face filled with terror again. Blow after blow, we can see how Muscular and the masked man continued in their fight. However, the speed and strength they used previously had now gradually dropped in level. Muscular threw a punch that turned the masked man's face and he in turn returned the blow with the same intensity. Now it was just a challenge of resistance. At some point one of those two would fall to the ground unconscious at the mercy of the winner. "I have to escape, I have to go back to Aunt Shino," said the boy standing up, but his legs shook and he ended up falling to the ground. "Oh no," he said, drawing the attention of both giants. "Hey kid, I didn't know you were still alive," Muscular mentioned smiling. He had lost interest in his opponent when he saw that they were quite even, but when he saw Kota and filled him with fear, it was like coming back to life for him. "Don't get distracted," shouted the masked man, slamming his fist so hard against his rival's head that Muscular's eyes turned white and he fell to the ground completely unconscious. "Hey kid, do you know how to fight? Are you strong?" asked the guy while Kota with tears in his eyes shook his head. "Then go, I'm not interested in weaklings," complained the guy, surprising the kid, giving him free rein to leave. Back with Aizawa, we can see how he and his group arrived at the disaster area. Tiger had Pixie Bob and Mandalay in his arms, who was motionless at the news of Muscular, but that was not all. Right now the villains were having some difficulties due to the presence of a completely out of control Dark Shadow. That's Dark Shadow, Izuku mentioned, surprised to see the great size and power. And he's out of control, Aizawa commented sternly. To separate himself from Kendo, the man was very hurt, but someone had to stop Tokiyami. Damn it, calm down, Dark Shadow. You'll hurt someone, Tokiyami said, desperate and completely subdued by his own power. To be continued. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please make sure to like and subscribe to the channel, and now we will see you in the next video.